Student Success Committee is called to order. Thank you everyone for being here. We are still hoping that Commissioner Wharton will be able to join us virtually, so we'll continue to work on that as we move forward. We will first call the roll. For those of you joining, well, when AC joins virtually, I guess we should go ahead and call the roll because he's expected to join virtually. And we'll remind him to state his name. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairwoman Scarlett?
Here.
Commissioner Knight?
Here.
Commissioner Wharton? Commissioner Winton? Secretary Hargett?
Here.
Commissioner Morrison? Chairwoman, you have 3 members present and a quorum.
Okay. So our first item of business is a statement of need for us to meet electronically today. We do not need to do that because we don't have anyone online right now. So we'll, I guess, do that later if he shows.
We only have to do it if there's a quorum.
Oh, okay. Got it. All right then. So we'll have to adopt our agenda. With no questions or objections, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Madam Secretary.
Chairwoman Scarlett?
Aye.
Commissioner Knight?
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton? Secretary Hargett? Chairwoman, you have 3 ayes.
All right, wonderful. The next item is public comment. Dr. Gentile, have we received any requests for public comment?
We have not.
Moving this right along. So our first regular calendar item is election of a chair. And I'll open up the floor for nominations for a chair.
I'll move to nominate Kasha Winton to be chairman of this committee.
A second.
Any discussion? On the 3 of us? And I will preface this, since Takasha's not here, it is an ad hoc committee to begin with. We'll eventually have a permanent committee. No, she's not here, but I do think she'd be a great person. So, if you wouldn't mind, roll call.
Chairwoman Scarlett?
Aye.
Commissioner Knight?
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton? Secretary Hargett? Chairwoman, you have 3 ayes.
Wonderful. Well, as Commissioner Wharton is not here, and now she is voted in as chair, I will sit in her stead just to move us along. The next item on our agenda is the post-secondary education authorization. There are 2 parts to this agenda item, and without objection, we will vote on them as a set. So Dr. Stephanie Bellard-Chase, Senior Director of the Post-Secondary State Authorization, will provide an overview of the post-secondary education authorization and then answer any questions. Dr. Bellard-Chase, if you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and committee. Before I get started, I just wanted to give an overview of the Division of Post-Secondary State Authorization. So through the commission, as of May of 2023, we have currently 275 authorized institutions. Of those, 205 are regularly authorized, 67 are accredited, 138 are unaccredited, 147 are for-profit, and 58 are not-for-profit. Additionally, we have 70 institutions that have optional expedited authorization. All of them are accredited. 41 of them are for-profit, and 29 are not-for-profit. And in 21-22, there were approximately 58,000 students enrolled in the institutions that we authorized. Now, I will move to the agenda items. In agenda item 2A and B, there are 9 institutions and 16 new program registrations for your consideration. There's an overview in your packet. I'd be happy to answer any questions on the regularly authorized institutions. If there are none, there are also 3 optional expedited authorization institutions for your consideration. The difference between regular authorization and optional expedited, regularly authorized institutions are generally smaller in nature, and you only qualify for optional expedited authorization if you're accredited. And we rely more on the accreditation.
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit lost on where the follow-up. I have this electronically. I think there's also a book, and I just want to make sure that we're in the right place. Where should we be looking at this?
Calendar 1.
All right.
Calendar one.
Consent calendar.
Consent.
It's item 2A and B.
Consent calendar 2, I apologize.
Oh, okay.
If I may, items 1 through 4 on this agenda today are consent for tomorrow, and this is the review of them. When Scott and Rachel put these together, what you'll see in the binder tabs next to the agenda items, and our agenda items for this meeting right now under the AASC agenda, the second tab in the notebook. And this one right here is under consent calendar. If you look at the very top of your folder, you'll see consent calendar. 1A is right after that. And that's where we're going. We'll go 1A, 1B, 2, and 3A, 3B from there.
So right now we're talking about 3. Or 2, sorry.
Well, on the agenda, it says item 2A and B, but I'm not sure how the packets are made up.
1A in the folder.
Under consent calendar.
Yeah.
I think the first item is Martin Dental Assistant Academy, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And as I've said to all the commission members beforehand and our staff, this is the first time we're doing this. And so this is where we'll figure out the kinks that come with this and the stumbling as well to make this smoother for future operations.
Well, you have to forgive us, we're operating without Mark Chairman here.
Yeah.
I've texted her the news.
She's excited.
She's excited.
Yeah.
And Heather, has Mayor Warden comment on it? Okay. You just text me back saying he's accessing it. Sorry.
Okay, so in regards to 1A, the authorization of new institutions, do you all have any questions? I did not. Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Is that the only part that we need to review?
Scott, can you give an update on, can you tell them please what the motion of operations are today?
So the committee will be making recommendations for approval to the full commission. Our steps today would be to vote in a similar manner as we do at a full commission meeting, which would be a motion and a second, and making that vote at the committee level.
So a little bit confusing here because we were told to look at 1A in the binder, but we're also supposed to be approving 2. So I just want to make sure that we are
Yes,
approving
ma'am.
the correct.
If you will look, so on the agenda for this committee, on the far left-hand margin, above there it says binder tab. That's where you can find the materials that we're on. The item numbers on the committee agenda are the committee agenda. And I apologize for the confusion there. We didn't want to have to print off 3 different binders for you. But the items that you're voting on right now would fall under the consent calendar tab, and they would be 1A and 1B.
I would tell you what would help going forward is if the tab, if it's going to say binder tab CC dot A, if it would actually say that on the binder.
Yes, sir. And make that change.
Scott, while we're walking through the blueprint of this meeting, what would occur if one of the commission members wants to make an amendment to the decision?
Certainly. Well, it would be a committee amendment, and that would be, for example, if there was a change in the materials as printed that the committee would like to see a change on. We have an amendment form prepared. You would make that motion. We would incorporate that language onto the form. At the end of the meeting, the chair would sign the form. That would then travel with the item to the full commission meeting tomorrow. And at that point, the commission would have the opportunity to review the amendatory language, adopt that amendment into and have final approval on the matter during the meeting tomorrow.
Okay. I will provide just a comment in regards to the second part of what you were talking about here, the mission profiles. Just a comment. That's part of
That's next, mission profiles. Sorry.
All right, so any, I guess we need a motion to approve this first, the secondary education offer.
So moved. Second.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairwoman Scarlett?
Aye.
Commissioner Knight?
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton? Secretary Hargett? Chairwoman, you have 3 ayes.
Okay, so we're under, in the binder, we're under consent item 2, which is institutional mission profiles. So I'm Julie Roberts, I'm the Chief Academic Officer here at THEC. I'm going to just real quickly give an overview of the mission profiles, and then happy to have any questions or comments. So, per state statute, institutions are required to annually submit institutional mission profiles that, 1, characterize distinctiveness and degree offerings by level, focus, and student characteristics, and 2, address institutional accountability for the quality of instruction, student learning, research, and public service. We use these institutional mission profiles here at THEC for several different things, including establishing weights for the outcomes-based funding formula. We use them as justification for new academic program development, and they also can be used in the capital outlay process. You have all of the institutional mission profiles that were submitted to us for all of our universities and community colleges. Any changes are highlighted in bold in the materials. Many of these changes, as you may notice, involve updating the number of students enrolled, new programs being offered at our campuses, workforce training hours, and many times highlighting any significant accomplishments at our campuses over the last academic year. So, any questions?
So, MTSU, when they say Tennessee's first public honors college, is that accurate?
I believe so. I'm looking to my MTSU folks. We didn't fact check, but I'm assuming that if it's in there, that is the case.
I'm trying to figure out what the distinction is. Why is it public honors college? And I say this, I know the University of Memphis, or Memphis State University, had an honors college. Don't know if they still do or not.
You know, Secretary Hargan, I'm not sure. We will fact check them, and if it needs to be amended, we'll follow that up.
Secretary Hyde, I'm part of that fact checking. The Honors College at MTSU has been around since 1973. So I can look up University of Memphis for this as well.
Thank you, Steve.
Then maybe the first then. I'm just kind of curious, if it was
Yeah.
the first, how come it's taken 50 years to put it in?
Well, they just decided, maybe they just fact checked themselves here a minute ago.
Planting the flag. I'm all for planting the flag, I get it.
Apparently, we'll have an answer here in a couple of minutes, so thank you. Dr. Genta.
So I just had a couple of comments, which I talked about with you all before, but I'm just going to share it with the group. I was asking this question is, what's the true desire to have these mission profiles include, which I understand is statutory responsibility. The request that I would have is to see, look at a geographic comparison of missions. In perfect order, look at that tied to workforce needs in the areas, because I wonder if there are opportunities or gaps that might exist within these missions tied to the needs of the community when it comes to business. So that would be one request. And the second question I had, which you answered, but I think would be valuable for everyone else to hear, is why are there no technical schools included in this?
Yeah, and it's not required in statute, and so that's why we're not reporting it out. However, the technical colleges, I'm going to look to my friends here at TVR, they do have mission profiles, correct? Yes. Yes.
I think additionally, it might be valuable to look at all of the post-secondary institutions geographically what those missions are tied to what sort of industry is needed in those communities. Or what we know might be coming up, and it might give an opportunity for communities to think differently, or for institutions to think differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I may. So you mentioned gaps, and I'm also interested in the opposite, duplication.
Okay.
I'm interested to see how y'all react whenever maybe somebody is looking to update their institutional profile. Do y'all ever look at that and say, well, that kind of feels like that's bleeding over into the institutional profile of another nearby university? So
We haven't in the past. I mean, we definitely review them, but we haven't done it with that kind of critical eye, but we can absolutely take a look.
what do y'all look for?
Really, we look for changes so that we can include them in the agenda because they're approved by their board. So we usually just take them as they are. And we do, if there's some glaring mistakes, we'll fix that. But other than that, we just really collect them and compile them currently. but we can, and now again, but we do use these, especially for my team, when we look at academic program approval, they can rely on institutional mission to provide that as an explanation of why they're doing a certain type of program. So we use them that way at that point.
So that's a great point, because that's really, the mission is supposed to guide everything that happens at the university.
Yeah.
Right? So then I want to understand, whenever somebody brings you a program, y'all hold it up next to the mission and say that it's part of that.
Yeah.
Is this an opportunity when somebody has a program they want to do, you say it was outside their mission, now they come back and they say we want to update the mission profile, the institutional profile, and now this new program fits under it.
That could happen, the way that it hasn't happened. Now, but I would say with the mission profile, so campuses also have their vision and mission. And these are just mission profiles, which do change annually. So it may be that there is a pivot for a specific industry that they're looking to that they didn't know was an opportunity the year before. So in that case, I think that would be appropriate. I'm thinking about, just to use one example top of mind is the nuclear energy program that's happening right now at THEC. A year or two ago, they may not have seen that as an opportunity, but with the governor's push for nuclear technology and nuclear energy, that to me would feel like an appropriate shift if they did that. They didn't do that in their mission profile because I think the nature of nuclear engineering fits within THEC's mission anyway. But your point's well made.
Well, thank you for that. And to the point that the chair was making, I'm really surprised that the University of Memphis nor UT Martin, I'm curious about I came down the Southwest back here, how Blue Oval City ties into their mission statement, their institutional profile. So here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
And please don't take this the wrong way.
Sure.
We're all flying, actually walking for the first time here.
Hey.
I really don't want THEC just to be the proofreader.
Sure.
Of the institutional profile. I want us to really help dig in, help refine that. Because I think the legislature counts on us to come back and be this independent third-party body that has a broader view of all of higher education. So we've got Dr. Nolan right behind you. I expect Dr. Nolan to be the champion of East Tennessee State University and Northeast Tennessee and East Tennessee. I expect that. I expect us to be taking all that together and be able to give anybody interested in higher education a much broader view.
No, absolutely. And I think you might be stealing a little of my thunder later in the meeting around, we've had a lot of conversations around academic program approval process. And some of the things that have come up is thinking about these larger state issues, both regionally and state level, and having a larger role in providing context of where our needs are, where's our gaps, are we oversaturated in certain places? And I think that could absolutely come down to institutional profiles as well. So we hadn't really thought about it in that or I hadn't in preparation for this meeting, but I can see where this fits in really well to that conversation as well.
Thank you, ma'am.
Also, sir, if I may, there was a time when THEC's statewide higher education master plan did discuss more about missions and what are the needs of our state, what should our universities be doing, what should our community colleges be doing. There's a public agenda released back in the early 2000s that Dr. Nolan was a part of creating back then. I think we have shifted away from that over the time. Our more recent master plan is talking about what higher education should be doing, not so much about what are the proper roles of our institutions. I believe in our next iteration of that statewide master plan, that should be a part of that conversation with our master plan committee that is statutory bound and the commission as well, where these then have more salience in what they're doing in our action items as well. I think that's a place where it'd be good to get back to for THEC.
So I have two other things.
Sure.
One, and let's talk about this when we talk about the MTSU program as well. Every single community college mission profile says something about transferring to a university, and 0 university profiles say anything about bringing in transfer students. And to tie that to the outcomes-based funding formula, some of the metrics that are used in the outcomes-based formula for community colleges involve transfer students, but none for the universities. And so I think there's a little bit of an imbalance and such a big opportunity.
Sure.
I think there'd be value in us understanding what are the top high growth career pathways that we need to be looking at across the entire state, and really kind of doing a deep dive and evaluating those transfer pathways and understanding what's the best practice? How can we have those become a best-in-class opportunity for the students that are going through that pathway?
Absolutely, and I think, Dr. Tracy Comer is behind you, and she's our Director of Articulation and Transfer, and we were just talking about, as I love to talk about transfer pathways in the morning over coffee, about TTPs and opportunities, and so I appreciate that, and, we've worked very closely with our TPR partners and our UT system partners, and so really are planning we just had a transfer summit September. Seems like it was 3 years ago. It was just a couple months ago. And so really trying to kick off that work. And next thing that we're planning, Tracy's actively planning right now, are some regional meetings. And so I think that we can absolutely have some of those conversations and do some of the pre-work to really set the stage for that.
I think that'd be very valuable to see. And also within that, I'd like for you guys to assess, I'm sure it's already top of mind, assess all of the asterisks and footnotes that exist. I keep hearing about the asterisks and footnotes. I haven't actually seen the asterisks and footnotes, but I understand there's a lot, and we need to do what's best for the students of Tennessee.
Yes. Yeah. I definitely have already waged war on the asterisks. And Tracy's taking on the lead with that. But thank you for that.
The other comment I had is just an observation. All of the mission profiles have been updated in 2023 with the exception of one, which is Tennessee State University. And I'm curious to know if and you probably wouldn't know this, it'd be a question for GSU, are there board of trustees reviewing it? And have there really been no changes over the past 3 years?
So I actually, after we spoke, I checked with my colleague, Maya Robinson, behind you. I have the whole academic affairs team so that they can give me the look. And so it had not gone in front of their board, but we had gotten official submission for this year of that profile.
Well, with that, there's no further comments or questions. You want to take a motion?
So move.
Second. And Commissioner Wharton, welcome to the meeting, and we will move forward with a vote. Madam Secretary?
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Knight,
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton,
Aye.
Secretary Hargett.
I think I need to say aye.
Yes.
Okay.
Chairwoman, you have 4 ayes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So next up we'll be talking about off-campus centers. There are 2 parts of this agenda. Without objection, we'll vote on them as a set. Ms. Jones, THEC Director of Academic Affairs, will be presenting information on off-campus centers and then answer any questions. Ms. Jones, you recognized.
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to present 2 proposed centers today. Before my presentation, I would also like to give some general context of off-campus sites and centers. Per state statute, the Tennessee Higher Education Commission is to review and approve or disapprove all proposals for off-campus locations at public institutions. At our community colleges and universities, we approve both sites and centers. Per THEC, off-campus policy centers need to be approved by the commission, while approval for sites have been delegated to the THEC executive director. Per the THEC definition, an off-campus center is located geographically apart from the main campus where students can enroll and complete at least one full academic program. There must also be a continuing administrative presence evidenced by at least one full or part-time on-site administrator. An off-campus site is similarly situated but only used to offer credit enrollment. Typical examples of sites are dual enrollment and workforce development opportunities, and there are no complete academic program offerings or administrative requirement at sites. Typical criteria used to evaluate a center includes needs assessment with community and industry support, alignment to the institutional master plan, and some financial projections. And so in your agenda, it's item 3, A and B. And with that background, I will begin my presentation for the first center today. So in October of 2018, the Summerville site was approved as a partnership between Southwest Tennessee Community College and University of Tennessee Martin to offer classes towards an emergency medical technician certificate. Today, Southwest is requesting a center code for Summerville site to offer complete technical certificates in emergency medical and to expand to offer additional certificates in advanced emergency medical technician and paramedic. Renovations are anticipated to be general and pertain mainly to the equipment upkeep and small operating budget. Southwest Tennessee Community College also intends to hire one additional faculty member to assist with the projected increase in enrollment, and Southwest's regular budget will absorb any costs outside of those I've previously mentioned. Are there any questions?
Why don't you vote for me?
Sure. I have all my scripts ready to go. In the fall of 2021, the Arlington High School site was approved to offer dual enrollment courses between Southwest Community College and Arlington High School. The expansion from site to center allows students to participate in computer numerical control, also referred to as CNC, labs on the Arlington High School grounds. Today, Southwest Tennessee Community College requests a center code for qualifying students enrolled at Arlington High School Center to complete technical certificates in CNC operator and mechatronics technology. Renovations are anticipated to include the retrofitting of 3 classrooms to create CNC labs at the school. Southwest's annual budget provides financial support for the center because of an arrangement between both parties, where Southwest High School has committed to hiring faculty that Arlington High School has committed to hiring faculty that Southwest Tennessee Community College can credential and teach dual enrollment courses. And then that is the final, yeah. Are there any questions?
Southwest here.
Southwest isn't here, but we do have some TBR representation.
Anything else they need to add? I guess not.
I could hear the,
Is there anything
Y'all
that,
need to add anything?
and I think she did a comprehensive, let me get a minute. Good morning, all. Jonathan E. Reed, the Vice Chancellor for Academics at TBR. The only thing that I think I would add, I think you kind of brought it up earlier, what are the workforce demands around this, particularly on the Center for Somerville. That is being driven by the anticipated employment and population growth from the Ford Blue Oval City. So I did want to highlight that that is driven by the programs that we're going to need to support that as well. And then I think AJ did a great job capturing all the other nuances of why we're moving from a site where we have already been offering courses to having full programs to meet employment pipelines in those areas.
So I have a general question, and this is a question you all heard from me before. As I understand, these programs are already operating in these locations where they exist, right, for both two separately. And there's already budget allocated for this. So there's nothing incremental that's being asked for. I don't understand why THEC needs to approve the continued growth of something that's already been approved. And this question is probably not for you. This question is really for you guys. And I just don't know why it's being brought to us if it's already operating the way it needs to operate. There's no additional money being asked for. I don't understand.
So that's a part of my task. I'm actually working to update off-campus policy currently, and I think that's absolutely something that we can look at and figure out ways to better streamline the process.
Would you guys agree or disagree? I just don't.
Yeah, I really don't understand why we're having to take this up. So help me understand why we're having to take it up, Steve.
Dr. Roberts, can you talk about the backing of why we approve this? Is it statutory? Is it policy?
so we do, in statute, THEC is responsible for off-campus locations. However, our policy, the way it's currently written, has centers going to commission. And so I'm not sure why. And so as we had been talking about this internally, as AJ said, we're really doing an overhaul of off-campus right now. AJ's been cleaning up a ton of data. And so our next step is to update policy. And so this was something that we had, Scott actually had flagged it for us as well. And then Commissioner Scarlett, you brought it up as well. So if the commission would like us to delegate that down to executive director, like we have done sites, we can definitely draft that into our policy update. That should be coming shortly.
I think that's really a theme that we can have throughout this day when we talk about academic program approval. Why does the commission approve it? Because the statute that says the commission approves it. If the commission wants to delegate that to staff, that can happen through the policy, depending on what your comfort level is.
It just seems to me that speed to market,
Yes.
which we're talking about, especially when we're talking about Blue Oval City, everything Blue Oval City is like speed to market. But it really should be the case across the state. If we know we've got so. Yes, Commissioner.
Historically, first, good morning. I recall way back when we first got into the field, it's more of a capital consideration. We had a number of instances in which an off-campus location would get started and they would represent us that this is all free, it's given to us. we would enroll students that come back the next there was a capital item to do this. Well, you have students standing in line, and we became the bad guys because there was a capital outlay that had not been contemplated. Other than that, I see no reason it should not be here, particularly one such as this, in which it's indicated that it's already covered. But I do think it's legitimate consideration for us to ask the question, are there any potential capital outlays, say, in the upcoming 5 years? We just need to know that. But I agree with the question as to why it's here. And historically, there was no reason other than capital considerations.
I think I might be able to shed a little light. I'm going to read just one sentence out of the statute. The commission shall review and approve or disapprove all proposals by any higher education institution to establish a physical presence at any location other than its main campus, or to extend an existing location that will be utilized for administrative purposes, or to offer courses for which academic credit is offered. And I think that provides the statutory basis upon which the policy, the practice and the policy has been executed.
And that's something that the commission could delegate to staff if they want to.
We want to look into that a little bit, but the duty exists currently, and we have interpreted that to mean it is very broadly written.
When was that statute passed?
Oh goodness, Secretary Hargett, our statute and elements of our statute go back to the agency's founding in 1967.
Well, I agree with both of you. I think this is an opportunity to really take a deep dive into what do we have, what do we need to be doing at the committee level, at the board level, and then what do we feel comfortable delegating to staff. And I can hear exactly what Commissioner Ward is saying. How many things have not just only in the world of higher education, but in government period, started off like, hey, this is no cost to us, we're going to do it with existing resources, and then 5 years later, somebody says, oh, we need eight people to come staff the administrative offices. Got to have 10,000 square feet somewhere, and so I agree. I think there ought to be a way that whenever people disclose this to us, though, that they do so with the understanding that we're not asking for anything more. We don't anticipate future additional staffing needs or fiscal needs. They're not already contemplated. So
something to consider about revising. In the meantime,
I'll move approval. Second.
Madam Secretary.
Chairwoman Scarlett?
Aye.
Commissioner Knight?
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton?
Aye.
Secretary Hargett?
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 4 ayes.
Thank you.
Next, we have new academic programs. We have 3 new academic programs for the commission to consider today from East Tennessee State University, Middle Tennessee State University, and Motlow State Community College. First up, we have Dr. Catherine Brackett, THEC Director of Academic Affairs, to provide an overview of ETSU's Mechatronics Engineering Bachelor of Science, and introduce Dr. Kimberly McCorkle, Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs at ETSU.
Madam Chair and Commission, if you look at the binders on the last set of vertical tabs, this is the third one down.
So Roman numeral 4A, right?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Katie Brackett, and I serve as East Tennessee State University's Program Liaison for THEC. Before I introduce Dr. McCorkle, I want to say a few words about the Bachelor of Science in Mechatronics Engineering under consideration today. The proposed 128 credit hour Mechatronics Engineering program had a very successful site visit on August 22nd, 2023. Dr. Alberto Aliceta, Professor and Chair of Mechanical Engineering at the University of Washington, served as the external reviewer. Dr. Aliceta was very complimentary of the meaningful relationships the program had with local industry, the proposed curriculum and facilities, as well as the potential outcomes for graduates, writing, this program will produce highly sought-after engineers who will contribute to the state's global competitiveness and create a foundation of high-paying jobs in the Eastern Tennessee region, as well as the whole state. Dr. Aliceta recommended approval of this program without reservation, adding, I have many data points that support the urgent need for this type of program across the United States and for this specific program in Eastern Tennessee. And now I am pleased to introduce Dr. Kimberly McCorkle, Provost and Senior Vice President for Academics at ETSU, to tell you more about the Mechatronics Engineering Bachelor of Science being proposed by her campus.
Thank you, Dr. Brackett. Is that yours? Good morning. Good morning. Chair Scarlett, members of the commission, thank you all so much for the opportunity this morning. On behalf of Dr. Brian Nolan, who's present, the ETSU Board of Trustees, and the faculty and staff at East Tennessee State University, it's my honor and pleasure to present today the ETSU's proposal to launch a Bachelor of Science in Mechatronics Engineering. I'm also joined this morning by my colleagues from the Department of Engineering and Engineering Technology, and that is Dr. Keith Johnson, who is the chair of the department, and Dr. Paul Sims, who is a professor in the department. They'll be able to answer the hard questions if you have them in a moment. I want to tell you a bit about mechatronics engineering. Mechatronics is considered an emerging area in engineering, and it's grown significantly since the 1960s into a multidisciplinary engineering field that combines a variety of elements from mechanical and electrical engineering, and also includes components of computer and systems engineering, robotics, and other production systems and control process automation. The ETSU program will provide students a robust experience in these areas and will also provide an opportunity for students to work with local and regional partners in a senior project that will allow them to gain valuable hands-on skills and knowledge in their field of interest prior to graduation. As you heard, the program is comprised of 128 credits, which is similar to other engineering programs. And the graduates of this program will be prepared to work in a variety of industries, including manufacturing, mining, aviation, robotics, defense, and transportation, among others. I think it's important to note that ETSU currently has several ABET accredited programs, specifically several in engineering or engineering-related fields. These include the joint degree program that we have with Tennessee Tech University. It's the ETSU TTU Joint General Engineering Program. It also includes our engineering technology program and our surveying and mapping program, all of which are ABET accredited. So in preparation for this curriculum, our faculty examined ABET standards to make sure that this program is aligned with ABET accreditation standards in mechatronics engineering. And so we have full plans to submit our program for ABET review as soon as we are able to do so, which is when the first class of students graduates in 4 years. You heard earlier about the external review that we received from Dr. Alberto Aliceta from the University of Washington. And one of the things that I think is important in his review, that he specifically found that the proposed curriculum is extensive and it aligns fully with ABET standards. So we believe we'll be in good position to seek ABET accreditation for this program to support the other programs we already have that are recognized by ABET. Dr. Aliceta also strongly supported the program faculty and quality of the faculty. He also noted appropriate facilities and laboratory spaces in order to administer the program. He noted regional, state, and national demand in this program, and also complimented the institutional support to ensure that the program will be successful. I'd like to talk for a moment about the alignment that this program has with university and state goals. As part of the ETSU strategic plan, one of our focus areas has been to expand the number of STEM graduates and also to continue to meet regional workforce needs. And we believe that this program fully aligns with both of those goals. It also aligns with state goals related to enhancing workforce development and educational attainment across the state and beyond. Tennessee is facing a shortage of engineers, and STEM jobs are growing at 2 times the rate of other occupations. Specifically in our region, manufacturing represents a large number of jobs. And what we have heard from our regional partners is that there is a need to update product lines and to develop automated processes in order for them to be more competitive. In your materials, you will see that we received support from a number of regional partners. Those include Eastman, Siemens, and THEC, which has manufacturing facilities. It's a global corporation, but they have manufacturing facilities in Greenville and Morristown. And those programs, those employers are supportive of us developing this program. I'll also note that Dr. Aliseda speaks specifically to the support of our regional partners in being able to develop this program for it to be successful. Finally, this program allows us to continue to partner with community colleges. As was mentioned earlier, I think it's really important for universities to focus on these pathways from our community college partners to give them the opportunity to pursue bachelor's degree programs. Our two largest feeder institutions in our region include Northeast State Community College and Walters State. We have received the support from both of these institutions in developing these programs. President McCord in particular has been really excited about the opportunity to partner on this program. They have a robotics lab there that we're excited about having the chance to really develop some special partnerships that feed students from Northeast State into ETSU. We already have articulation agreements with both of these partner institutions, and we will certainly add mechatronics to the partnership agreement. I'll also note that we will accept credit from the Engineering Tennessee Transfer Pathway, the TTP, and also appropriate credits from other AAS and AS degree programs. We believe that this program will appeal to students who have backgrounds in computer science, math, physics, and imaging sciences, among others. With that said, I would like to thank Dr. Julie Roberts and her staff for all of the support in developing this proposal, and I would be happy to take any questions that anyone has regarding the proposal. Thank you.
Commissioner Wharton, do you have any questions?
Question.
No questions. Thank you.
So, Dr. McCorkle, when did y'all start interacting with THEC on this program?
We started interacting with THEC just over a year ago with this program in the fall semester of 2022.
Tell me how you feel about that process. Was it too lengthy? Was it duplicative? Was it too thorough? I mean, would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, thank you, Secretary Hargett. I have appreciated working with the THEC staff, and I think we've shared a lot of this kind of feedback with them already related to the process. We were hopeful when we presented this program to our Board of Trustees last fall and received their approval that we would be able to accelerate and offer the program on a pretty accelerated timeline as soon as this fall. And because of the process and delays in the process, I think that naturally occur. We were already on a pretty expedited timeline, but delays that happen, including needing to present the full proposal to this board, we were not able to get that done until now, which means that we won't be able to fully advertise the program until the spring and really start entering students next fall. And so we had talked about the possibility for expediting that process so that we, as administrators at regional institutions, can respond to workforce demands and to our boards urging us to develop programs like this that will serve a community and regional need.
So for those of you in the audience, be prepared, your time's coming. Okay, so I ask you the same questions if you're ready for that. Help me, you mentioned delays that naturally occur. I'm really interested in kind of drilling down a little bit because I don't know. So I want to make sure I'm asking the right question here. What occurred from as a consumer, okay, that, you're our customer. You're trying to get approval from us. So we are customers of one another, frankly. But tell me what questions were we asking? What things did we want that you're looking at thinking, why do you need that? Tell me why that?
Well, so in the effort, I think, to be thorough in the review of all the documents that we submitted, we were requested to provide additional information along the way. So as we submitted a written proposal, we received feedback of, can you provide more information about this? Can you demonstrate workforce need a little bit more? Can you answer these kinds of issues that we think are still lacking? And so all of those reviews take time. They take time from THEC's perspective. It takes time for the institution to respond to those. And all of those were happening
kind of in the spring semester that probably delayed the process a bit. And all of that had to be completed fully before the external reviewer could be, sort of scheduled to come. And that has to be done fully with the report in hand, with the institution responding, THEC looking at it before this meeting can be set. And so I think it was that all of those processes took a bit of time and probably delayed. We would have liked to have presented this to this commission in July, and we weren't able to make the July meeting because of those kind of delays.
You're describing a very linear process. In your conversations last month with Julie and team, are there any opportunities to make that a little more efficient, maybe a little bit less linear?
I think so. We had a really great conversation. I was really pleased that they convened all the chief academic officers and others to talk about the process. And I think that the feedback we shared there and that you have been thinking about already includes ways that we could accelerate kind of that process, ways that we can expedite the reviews, potentially, as I've suggested, maybe concurrently setting the external reviewer to come in while some of these processes are happening instead of waiting for that to be fully done before that.
There'd be parallel
Exactly.
things going on at the same time.
Right. And then I think fundamentally, as you talked about already this morning, the question is about whether the commission is going to require institutions to fully present bachelor's programs and master's programs to the commission for review, or whether that's something that staff might be able to review in certain instances. But if there are some criteria that a program meets state level demand in STEM fields, that there's workforce need, and a university has already demonstrated capacity to handle those programs and to offer them in a way that ensures quality, maybe there's an opportunity for an expedited process that doesn't involve a full presentation to this commission, respectfully, but as something to consider.
Any other questions?
Second.
Chairwoman Scarlett?
Aye.
Commissioner Knight?
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton?
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 4 ayes.
Wonderful, congratulations. We'll seek to create more efficient processes. So next, so thank you very much, Dr. Corkle and Dr. Brockett. Next up, we have Ms. Jones again, also known, I think it says like AJ, to provide an overview of MTSU's Cybersecurity Management Bachelor of Science, and also to introduce Dr. Joyce Heems, Dean of Jennings A. Jones College of Business at MTSU. Any connection to the?
No, I wish. Hello again. As you know, I'm Angelica Jones, and I serve as the Middle Tennessee State University Program Liaison for THEC. And before I introduce Dr. Heems, I want to give a few words about the Bachelor of Science in Cybersecurity Management under consideration today. The proposed 120-hour cybersecurity management program had a very successful site visit June 29th of this year. Dr. Nicole Beebe, an endowed chair and professor of cybersecurity from the University of Texas at San Antonio, served as the external reviewer. Dr. Beebe recommended approval for the proposed program, stating the proposed classes required and electives are aligned with employer needs. And the program is balanced between science major dedicated hours and business management coursework. Dr. Beebe also stated that the management minor is one of the program's biggest design strengths. And now I am pleased to introduce Dr. Joyce Heems, Dean of Jennings A. Jones College of Business at Middle Tennessee State University, to tell you more about the Cybersecurity Management Bachelor of Science being proposed on her campus.
Good morning. I am delighted to be here. This is my first time to visit THEC, so I appreciate the opportunity. And on behalf of our provost, our president, and our board of trustees, I also have with me Dr. Tim Greer, our chair of our program, and Dr. Nita Brooks, who also can add any technical questions, answer any technical questions that you may have. We're very excited to bring the proposal for a BS in cybersecurity management at Middle Tennessee State University. The program has full support of our campus community, including the board of trustees and many of the industries that are in our area. The program does consist of 46 hours focused on real-world applications of cybersecurity management. Sample courses include our digital forensics and incident response, analytics for cybersecurity, Python for business applications, and strategic. Technology and information are critical aspects of our personal and professional lives. We all know that. Expanding our ability to understand and manage security and privacy is necessary to ensure protection of our data and defend our systems against the latest cyber attacks. We feel the proposed BS in cybersecurity management provides a unique opportunity to influence the quality and quantity of cybersecurity professionals in the state of Tennessee. The program will be housed in our Information Systems and Analytics Department, chaired by Dr. Greer, which has offered our graduate level concentration for many years. Our plan is to add 2 faculty to the department to support the undergraduate degree program. I was at a dinner last night and mentioned that we were in our final stages of getting this approved, and everyone at the table said, this is needed, and we appreciate your efforts in doing this. The curriculum will also include topics, courses that provide the opportunity to expand our offerings. We anticipate the first offering of the courses to include the use or role of artificial intelligence in cybersecurity. Back, please. Heather, I may need you. Let's see if we get this one. I made it too many times. Thank you. Okay. So the BS in Cybersecurity Management provides a business foundation and opportunities for cross-disciplinary collaboration. As our accrediting body told us, this was an important element to it. So students will take courses in accounting, finance, management, and marketing, and business law, thus having the business acumen they need to add to this set of skills. Understanding the fundamental principles of business operations is key to developing and managing systems and securing the infrastructure and data critical to an organization's existence. In addition, they will have the ability to select courses from disciplines across campus to support their degree and learning experience. The program will engage experts in the industry and support student learning experience. The program will support the cybersecurity community by involving industry experts in course delivery, as well as in activities such as participating in security-related competitions, supporting career advising, and providing internship opportunities. Supports the goal of increasing the educational attainment levels of Tennesseans through the creation of an undergraduate degree program and associated curriculum that focuses on supplying one of Tennessee's largest workforce demand areas, cybersecurity. As noted by the Nashville Technology Council in a recent survey of their corporate members, cybersecurity was listed as one of the top 3 skills needed in the region. The NTC additionally noted a 5-year total growth in security analysis positions, one of the most in-demand jobs, 169%. In researching the need for this program, our group examined over 600 unique job postings from 2022 for the Middle Tennessee area in Davidson County, Rutherford County, Williamson County. The postings indicated that 73% of the jobs required a bachelor's degree and approximately 91% required a bachelor's degree or higher. When looking nationally at over 300,000 unique job postings in cybersecurity, the number of jobs that require a bachelor's degree increases to 93%. This program provides Tennesseans with the opportunity to be part of a growing and sustained workforce. Based on the projections for growth from 2021 to 2031, for all technology-related jobs, information system analytics will grow 35%, with a median salary of $102,600. The demand and pay will continue to be attractive to prospective individuals looking to enter a technology-related career. It promotes student success. That is one of our primary goals, through a community dedicated to student-centered learning. In addition to support through MTSU, the Jones College of Business, and the Information Systems and Analytics Department, the degree program is plan to involve many experiences for students, including labs, competition, student organization, and professional mentors. These are all areas that promote students in reaching their full potential. As our slide here, a summary of the expected cost and revenue for the program are provided here based on the enrollments projected in the proposal. Expenditures include the use of a consultant in the planning year, as well as equipment, marketing, and travel. The revenue numbers are based on full-time and part-time student enrollment. We estimated 5 part-time students per academic year for planning purposes. These revenue numbers assume a 3% growth in tuition after year 1, and we are projecting students completing the program and graduating in year 3. We base these numbers on most recent related programs at MTSU that went through this process. I would add to this that one of our primary and objective goals is also to be a university of destination for those that are coming through from the community colleges into those pathways, and we hope to continue to develop those kind of relationships so that we can, almost 50% of the students at MTSU come through that. And I, being a product of a community college and having to complete that before I got into my undergraduate degree, I have a heart for that and think that that's an important aspect of our overall educational mission. So we're here. We'll be glad to discuss faculty costs if that is of an interest to you. Looking again at hiring 2 new faculty over the course of the next 3 years to be able to ramp this up. But our faculty are prepared and ready to launch this the moment we get your approval. And I appreciate your being here with me today. Thank you.
I have one question, and this may be as a result of the structure of the curriculum. Is there a reason a Bachelor's of Science was chosen in place of a Bachelor's of Business Administration?
So I think that with the Bachelor of Science, Dr. Greer, may I ask Dr. Greer to answer that question?
Yes, flexibility. We got somebody participating electronically. Would you mind? Oh,
please.
So we chose a Bachelor of Science because of flexibility. Our BBA business core has 42 hours. By going with the BS, we still got the minor in business, which we wanted. And at the same time, we got flexibility where, in essence, it was hinted at earlier on our community college students coming in. Our department has traditionally been very dependent upon transfer students coming in. So that was one of the reasons. Also, we have criminal justice, we have political science, we have a lot of different majors on campus that may want to come in and take those classes. So as flexibility was the short answer of that. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Greer.
So I would love to hear about your experience in the approval process.
Well, unfortunately, I've only been here about 145 days. But so far, and what we have gone through in terms of MTSU support, THEC support has been wonderful. We would have loved to have been here a little quicker, but again, I think our own processes. I love the comment earlier about running parallel between having our off-site visits and external visits in conjunction with this so that we can perhaps speed the process along, especially if we're in a program area as successful as we know this one will be. But other than that, I think it's been fine.
Any other opportunities that maybe we could have served you better?
I think in terms of just THEC has been great in answering our questions. I am excited to see how this subcommittee works in allowing us to elevate some of our discussions and points up front. And so it's unique in a lot of ways in terms of from state to state and what we're doing. But just being there for us and making sure we're getting our questions answered so that we have all the information up front and providing it in a way that makes sense to the broader community.
Where did you come from?
Madam Chair,
Just 1 minute, Commissioner Wharton.
Yes, sir. I have a very unique background in that I started in a private school at Sanford University in Birmingham, Alabama. I then went to West Virginia University, a very large state school back in its heyday. And then I went back to a private school, Berry College in Rome, Georgia, and now here. And as a sidebar, I feel like I've been preparing my entire life for this position. It is just aligned with my life and everything that I have done so far. But I think that gives me that unique perspective that a dean typically may not have, in that I understand the private school world and I understand the large state school world. So being able to translate that into success and into programs that we may have at MTSU.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Wharton?
Thank you. This question is perhaps more for my enlightenment than anything else. I did hear the words artificial intelligence used, and I've asked this question before at another meeting when there was a presentation similar to this. What is the interplay between this field and that of artificial intelligence? Particularly interested in Nashville, Tennessee is one of the largest recording centers in the world. And of course, we just ended the SAG strike, and a lot of that was over the use of artificial intelligence. Is there any interplay at all, or is that a totally different field?
Artificial intelligence is going to permeate every program that we have in some way, from English to cybersecurity and everything in between. And so we have to understand and be able to teach our students how to incorporate that into our curriculum. Now I'll turn to Dr. Gear to see if he wants to add any additional comments on that. But I think it's an important element regardless of the program that we're putting in play.
The program that we're presenting today, one of the core courses is a topics in cybersecurity. We anticipate offering that course in a year and a half, depending upon how the student enrollment goes. And we anticipate the delivery of that course to focus on the use of AI in cybersecurity, more from a standpoint of how the tools are used, the components of how it makes it more efficient, instead of building AI applications. So what we do anticipate that is we know that is the biggest topic right now, and so we anticipate that course to be focused on that. Does that answer your question a little bit?
And I suppose the other side of that coin is you referred to how it is built or whatever, but the other side of the coin is how do we guard against any inappropriate and perhaps illegal uses of artificial intelligence? That would be the more worrisome side.
Correct, and I, without really giving it a lot of deep thought, my initial impression would be if a company or organization, part of their assets was AI, then yes, it would fall underneath the scope of cybersecurity to protect that. And so it would depend on what aspect AI was in to where it would fall.
Thank you.
I would also add that I think there's going to need to be some regulations around this, just like there are any other major threats to our business society, and help us to be able to control this. So hopefully at some point, the government will step in and allow us to make some controls. But again, it's a new tool. Some of you may remember, and here I date myself, some of you may remember when we first added Texas Instrument calculators to the classroom. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. Students won't be able to learn. That's a technology that they can't use. And yes, that is now a daily part of what we do. We started using Grammarly to help correct our language and stuff. Again, people will not learn how to write. So this is a severe case of in terms of infiltration into our curriculum, but we must recognize it, understand it, and teach our students how to use it and to make sure. But it is a key piece. I agree with you, Commissioner Wharton, that is a key piece that we need to look at.
Thank you.
You mentioned earlier about the transfer pathways and the number of large quantity of students here at MTSU that are transferring from community college. For cybersecurity, which community colleges do you have direct relationships and partners with?
Montlow is our largest at this point that we are working with, but there's a couple of others in the community of which we're working with closely, but it is our largest.
How many students do you anticipate coming in from Montlow or the other community colleges that would come in for the transfer program?
Probably 10 to 12 on a first annual basis, and then from there we can grow.
That's what I'm thinking.
This is going to be, well noted. It's going to have high profile, and I think the community is going to recognize it as well.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much.
If there are no other questions or comments, to accept the motion.
So moved. Second.
Madam Secretary.
Chairwoman Schuyler.
Aye.
Commissioner Knight.
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton.
Aye.
Secretary Harkin. Chairwoman, you have 4 ayes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Next, Ms. Jones will provide an overview of Montrose State's Distilled Spirits Associate of Applied Science and introduce Dr. Alicia Fox, Vice Chancellor of Finance, and Dr. Jonathan Reed, Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at TBR.
Hello again. As my last presentation today, I also serve as the Tennessee Board of Regents Program Liaison for THEC. THEC's duty to TBR is to process is to approve new programs presented to the system. Montrose State Community College proposes a Distilled Spirits Associate of Applied Science. THEC had the unique opportunity to participate in a site visit at the Uncle Nearest Distillery on May 16th of this year. We were met with strong industry support from Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, and other local distilleries there. Many in the room agreed that the distilling program with the curricular ties to Montrose State Community College and the Lynchburg method of Tennessee distilling would be indeed one of a kind. With that, I am pleased to introduce Dr. Alicia Fox and Dr. Jonathan Reed to tell you more about the Distilled Spirits Associate of Applied Science proposed by the Tennessee Board of Regents.
Again, good morning, Chair Scarlett and members of the Commission. I'm pleased to present Montrose State's Associate of Applied Science Distilled Spirits at the Nearest Green Academy of Distilling. Again, I'm joined by Alicia Fox, TBR's Vice Chancellor for Finance, and also in the audience to help with questions, I have Montrose Vice President for Academics, Dr. Virginia Verdine, as well as Charlie Coffey. The goal of this program is to facilitate the development of a pipeline of employees that further the business of the spirits industry. The curriculum is designed to build skill competencies and to develop leadership skills in the spirits industries by partnering with Nearest Green Distillery and Jack Daniels for hands-on and experiential learning. In addition, Montrose College has explored local and national information to determine existing and emerging needs for future support for all of those who have an interest in the science and craftsmanship of the spirits industry. The proposed program will consist of 60 hours of coursework and will offer both on-ground and online course options. The coursework will include 15 general education course credits, 9 credits of business-related courses, and 36 credits of distillery-related courses. Due to the age requirement of 21 to enter the program, this would not be offered as dual enrollment, although students can certainly take their general education courses at that point. This will be the only distilled spirits program in the state. However, there are 2 distillery-adjacent programs that exist at public institutions in the state of Tennessee. MTSU offers a Bachelor's of Science in Fermentation Science, and East Tennessee State launched a minor in Brewing and Distillation Studies. Our college is currently working on an articulation agreement between graduates of the proposed Montrose program and MTSU's fermentation program. The AAS and distilled spirits will fill a void and provide a foundation for economic expansion and workforce preparation. Because of Montrose's local history and affiliation with the spirits industry, area residents are uniquely interested in this program and the production of distilled spirits. Jack Daniels and George Dickel have notable places in our history and in that locale. With the introduction recently of the Uncle Nearest Distillery, the emphasis on and notability of the importance of this industry resonates even more with this community. There is significant workforce support for this program. According to the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States, the spirits industry provided over 26,000 jobs and provided over $4.2 million in state economic activity each year for Tennessee. One of the newest products from the Jack Daniels Distillery sold 2 million cases alone in 2021. Upon completion of this proposed degree, graduates can pursue careers in bottling operations and warehousing, with average salaries ranging from $29 to $130 per hour. Graduates be prepared to enter this industry in key positions, such as quality control, blender, mingler, and distiller assistant, with opportunities to move into management positions. As reported by the Tennessee's Distillers Guild in 2023, and a preliminary economic impact study in partnership with UTK, they share that the contribution of the Tennessee distilling industry is growing rapidly. From 2018 through March 2022, the number of distillery establishments grew from 33 to 59, and employment and wages showed similar patterns of growth. The Tennessee distilling industry has a prominent and growing national role. Among its peers, Our industry ranks second in distinct and direct employment and second in wages paid among all U.S. states. Nationally, distilled employment increased from over 15,000 jobs in 2018 to over 21,000 by 2021, while employment in Tennessee also paced with that to grow from over 1,492 jobs to over 2,060 in 2021. By March 2022, employment in the Tennessee industry had grown to 2,227 jobs. Wages followed a similar trend with over a 40% increase in Tennessee. While this program is being brought to you for approval for fall 2023, implementation will actually be in fall 2024, pending a successful statutory change to TCA 574109, tasting of alcohol by qualified students /criteria/definitions. The current code only currently recognizes a qualified academic institution that has established a bachelor's degree program that is designed to train industry professionals in the production of fermented or distilled food or beverage products. One of TBR's legislative priorities for spring 2024 will be seeking an amendment to include an associate's program so that Motlow's AAS and distilled spirits can be offered in fall 2024, and TBR is poised and ready for that legislative pursuit. The AAS and distilled spirits also aligns with THEC State Master Plan for Higher Education in key ways. First, the proposal addresses the state's economic and workforce development by bringing unique job opportunities to Tennessee. Second, the addition of the proposed program will increase degree production to support higher education in the state and our drive to 55. It also increases outreach to underemployed and unemployed adults that supports THEC's collaboration with the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. It also supports industry and growth and recruitment, which aligns the ECD's efforts at supporting existing employers to expand their capacity. It also aligns with the Tennessee Board of Regents Strategic Plan for 2015-2025 to support the Community and Workforce Policy Pillar. It further supports TBR's Center for Workforce Development goal through collaboration for business to develop a competitive workforce. The proposed program also aligns with Motlow's vision, mission, and their own strategic plan to deliver accessible, innovative learning opportunities that leads to the development of a talented workforce. At this time, Vice Chancellor Alicia Fox will present the revenue, cost, and enrollment projections. Following both, we will all be available for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. Good morning, Commission. I'm happy to provide an overview of the enrollment, revenue, and expense projections for this program. The AAS and distilled spirits will be partially funded by a partnership with Nearest Green Distillery and Jack Daniel's Distillery. They are contributing $5 million for startup and maintenance costs, including facilities build-out, first-year faculty and director costs, the grounds and space for the distilling labs and the classrooms, as well as equipment and maintenance. Related to the program costs, you can see the first 3-year revenue and expense projections on this slide. The non-recurring or one-time costs include mostly classroom and distilling equipment, as well as minimal consulting costs. Revenue to support these estimated expenditures has been committed by Nearest Green and Jack Daniel's. Under recurring costs, you will see the salary and benefits expense for instructors, as well as the annual consumable supplies budget to operate the program. Motlow anticipates launching the program with 1 full-time faculty/director position and 2 adjunct faculty members. They anticipate with the growth of the program, by year 5, that they will have 2 full-time faculty members and 6 adjunct faculty. The included enrollment and graduate projections at the bottom of this slide are based on enrollment in similar programs nationwide, including AB Tech's AAS and distilled spirits, Auburn University's BS in Brewing Science and Operations, MTSU's BS in Fermentation Science, and ETSU's new program minor and certificate in Brewing and Distillation Science, which was started in 2022. The average first semester enrollment at these institutions is 21. The average 4-year graduation rate is 7. Second-year enrollment average is 22, and third-year enrollment average is 31. The projections included on the screen here are based on this data and the established class cohort capacity size, which is capped at 15 full-time students. As Dr. Reed said, at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions about the budget, and we're happy to answer any additional questions you might have about this program.
Quick clarify, you just said that repeat the number you just mentioned about 4-year graduation.
4-year graduation average was 7.
So you started with, give me the whole rundown. You started 22 and you had 4 years later, 7 graduated, is that correct?
21. And that's the average of the 4 programs listed previously, which there's 1 associate and then the 2 bachelor's programs.
I have 2 questions. So in the event that this rule is not being able to change, does not get changed, what is your game plan?
Well, we're highly optimistic that we will be successful working on legislation to change it, because otherwise we don't have the opportunity to offer it as a full program based on the laws in place. Dr. Kim McCormick, who leads the legislative office of Tennessee Board of Regents, has already been working with sponsors in both the House and the Senate. We have also met with the Alcohol Commission to talk about the program, to get their support. And so there's lots of work being done, and I think there's a huge need for this, particularly with this pathway right into the university kind of adjacent programs as well.
And that actually follows up with my second question, is what type of 4-year programs would this program prepare students to transfer into?
So currently there are only 2 programs in the state at universities that are aligned in the distilling spirit. And again, that was MTSU's Bachelor's of Science in Fermentation. And so again, we are working with them now to do a course by course articulation, because it is a difference in focus. But again, students coming out of Montlow's program to get some credits when they transfer on. And then the next step would then be also working with East Tennessee on their minor in brewing and distillation, see if there's opportunities for articulation there as well. So those are really the 2 programs in the state that are related to distilled spirits.
So then, and this just because it's like every time I drive to work, there's a new distillery, local regional distillery. How does this program prepare students to be able to start their own distillery businesses?
Sure. Well, there is some language in the coursework around entrepreneurship, and that's part of the themes of leadership and entrepreneurship is weaving through the coursework. But again, as it is an AAS, it's primarily designed for them to go to work directly into the distilleries there. While Uncle Nearest and Jack Daniels are direct partners with the $5 million funding, there were 59 in the state that we're looking at for internship opportunities for students across the board. So I think our goal is to get them prepared to go to work, to learn the distilling spirits, and to move through those ranks maybe before starting it.
Thank you very much.
You may have mentioned this, and I didn't catch it. What laws are we going to ask to be changed?
Yes, so let me pull that for you. It is TCA 57-4-109. It is actually called Tasting of Alcohol by Qualified Students, criteria definition. In that current law, it is the one that allows a bachelor's level program to offer anything in a distilled spirit space. We're asking for an amendment to include an associate's degree along with the bachelor's degree level programs for distilled spirits.
I guess that law encompasses the ability of someone under 21 to be able to sip alcohol.
To swish it, to taste it for the science of distilled spirits, and to spit it out, not to drink it. But yes, we do need that change.
So tell me about your experience in getting this program approved.
So for TBR, let me kind of give some context for others. We have operated for over a decade with delegated authority. So TBR is driven clearly by their mission of student success and workforce development. So we work directly with employers to build a program such as this and to move it very quickly from the development of the program to approval at my office at the system level to presentation to our board. Normally, that can go around 3 months as a cycle. Because the reinterpretation of the statute is that TBR can no longer have the delegated authority, it now required us to bring workforce programs that are driven by employer needs through this process. As a part of that, that certainly lengthened the time from getting the program approved, but I do appreciate TBR and THEC work very collaboratively to work through that process. As an example, I invited THEC leadership to join us on our site visit because I recognized they had not looked at an associate's degree program in over a decade. So we used that as a learning opportunity to prepare those. It did stretch some of the time, obviously, because there were edits and feedback for THEC that may have been different than what the TBR board was accustomed to seeing. So that added some time. So for instance, normally in our normal process from the point we started the development of this program at the college, they got it approved by my office because we also have revisions at that step, and I took it to the board. We probably could have had this program completely done and approved by the June board meeting. As a result of the extra steps of that, we're now in November looking for approval. So it does stretch out TBR's timeline of about close to 6 months because it still has to go through the THEC COC process. But again, I think it's been a good learning curve and being very collaborative to make it work.
Well, let me ask really just a direct question. Did those extra steps improve the quality of the program?
It did not improve the quality of the program because we work so close with employers to determine what are the competencies that they need, what is the pipeline. We're already looking at the data and ensuring there's quality of our programs. What it did was just make us look at a different lens and making sure we were thoughtful around university engagement and then just having other thought partners in the conversation. But TBR colleges do an excellent job of developing high quality programs that are ready to make sure students are ready to enter the workforce.
We're trying to ask it another way. How did we add value?
Again, the idea of thought partnership is always valuable, but of course we could have, and we still had our delegated authority, got this approved and ready for implementation and students starting this fall.
So if I can, I just want, Dr. Gentile, I want you and other staff to hear me when I say this. We should be thinking about how are we adding value to this process? And if we're not adding value, there's really a couple of different options. Either get out of it or figure out how we can add value to it. Those are really the two options. And I really want to get out of the thought of here's how we've always done it. I know it sounds trite, but let's get out of the business of saying, well, we know that on this date we do this, and on this date we do this. And I want us to really be thinking about how in every transaction and process we're adding value to higher education as a whole. I'm not pointing a finger at anybody. I think it's the question we've got to answer. Sir.
Commissioner Wharton? Any questions?
I want to follow up on Secretary Hargett's observations there. Not in this meeting, but I would like to know, had this program been offered through, say, a proprietary institution and its authorities, how long does it take them to get their projects through? Had this been David Lipscomb or whatever, the Belmont, whatever. Secondly, and it goes to what Secretary Hargett just said, at one time we were viewed as sort of a consumer protection agency, that not only are we looking at the soundness of the intellectual offerings, but also let's make sure that the students are getting their money's worth or whatever. I don't know whether that still fits into our mission or not, but I would like to see if there is a way to compare what other institutions proprietary are doing. And secondly, for the sake of those of us located on the border, had this been presented to the Mid-South Community College in West Memphis, I do know for a fact when I was serving as mayor, the biggest complaint I would get with respect to businesses or companies wishing to expand and areas where they want to have apprenticeships or teaching courses or whatever, it takes too long. So I'd like to have a comparison. How do we line up with our border states on this process? And secondly, how do we align or line up as compared with proprietary institutions? Those do not have to be answered now. I know they're somewhat broad questions, but I'd like to hear that so we can further answer and respond to Secretary Hargett's observation.
Both of those comments, Secretary Hargett and from Mayor Warden, tees us up well for the next agenda item when we're talking about post-approval monitoring and how we are looking at that consumer protection and some ideas on how to amend that process. And the last agenda item, reviewing our academic approval process as well, because we hear loud and clear from institutions, from you as well. Continuous improvement is necessary. There's no one crying on my staff behind us because we're all eager to do that as well. I think the conversations that will happen at the end of this meeting can help set more of a pathway forward so that, sir, Mayor Warden, when we are reviewing this process and making recommendations to the commission in the coming months, we will certainly make a part of that process looking at what other states are doing, especially our border states as well.
So I do have one more question on this particular program, or really the operations. You mentioned that the number of graduates over a 4-year period is really low. I believe that TBR has requested advising supports within the budget, student supports advising, whatever they've named it. What sort of supports will you get? What sort of supports will a school get through this budget to be able to help students actually complete in a 2-year period of time versus a 4-year period of time and increase the overall number of students graduating and getting into the workforce?
Student support. Sure. So our student support network, the initiative that's coming through has to do with kind of those outside needs that students have, and just making sure they're supported all the way around. I think that's one thing that our institutions, and TBR specifically, has been focused on. There are a lot of outside things that keep students from completing programs. So I think success coaches, looking at transportation issues, having somebody that's checking in with them, and that's part of that support network, I think. I do think this is a unique program, just given the interest by Jack Daniels and Uncle Nearest. They're very invested in the students and the program and doing apprenticeships. I do think programs are more successful when there's apprenticeships or some sort of mentorship, and having somebody that's supporting them along the way, or having students that have been through the program. So I think just by the workforce partnerships of this program, they're going to have some of that built in support to help them progress in the program. They'll be working in apprenticeships and moving straight into jobs here. And while, just speaking to there aren't that many 4-year university programs here in Tennessee that they can transfer into. Dr. Reed mentioned there is opportunity for advancement with just this associate's degree program for high-wage jobs for these students. So I hope that answers that. Student support's not necessarily in my finance wheelhouse, but I hope I answered that. I'll be happy to answer any other questions.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's important to add to it, I'm not sure if Dr. Verheyen has anything even around the advising, just to make sure it's clear, this program is actually immersed inside of the distillery itself. The only thing that's off-site are general ed classes. So Uncle Nearest is actually building a portion of a building to add that. And we know there's always support for students where it's an immersive experience where every day they're there. And so I know Montlow is going to have some additional supports around student advising and working directly with those opportunities, particularly regarding the locale and how they are targeting it. And I think just also uniquely, there's just lots of opportunity to reach out to the community to bring in more numbers because of the unique interest in distilling in the Montlow space. So.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Any other questions? We will look for a motion in a second.
So moved.
I was going to let you do it.
All right, I'll
get your name in the playbook.
Madam Secretary.
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Knight,
Aye.
Commissioner Warden,
Aye.
Secretary Harkin. Chairwoman, you have 4 ayes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the post-approval monitoring report. Dr. Roberts, Chief Academic Officer, will provide the information. Dr. Roberts.
Thank you so much. Let me get all my stuff situated. So as Dr. Gentile already mentioned, the next 2 items are this post-approval monitoring report and then an overview around our new academic program approval process. I thank Dr. McCorkle for doing most of the presentation already, so thank you. But I want both of these to be as conversational as you guys would like. So I have some slides presented are ready to go, but feel free to interrupt. I'd love to have a discussion around these things because to your point, Secretary Hargett, we are trying to think about what is the value add? Where do we fit in? What are we doing that makes sense? What are we doing because we've always done it that way? And so with the post-approval monitoring report, we've piloted some things. And so part of the conversation I'd like to have today is around, does this feel like this was the right way to go? And so with that, let me actually start my presentation. And again, feel free to interrupt. All right, so I want to start with just an overview of what post-approval monitoring has been. And so in the past, we have provided an annual update of all of the programs that are in post-approval monitoring. And so after a program is approved, like we had today, based on the level of the program, they go into a monitoring period that we have them submit different types of reports. So for associate's degrees and certificates, we monitor them for 3 years. Bachelor's and master's degrees, it's 5, and our doctoral degrees, it's 7. And so in the past, we've taken the enrollment and graduation projections that is established during the approval process and measured the success of the program based on those metrics. So if they projected 35 students enrolled fall of whatever and 10 graduates, we looked at that. If they hit at least 80%, then we considered that successful. The 4 types of reports we typically required were implementation. So this was just a report as campuses before they enrolled students, just an update of where they were at. We have standard reports, which are the more standard, which would give us those enrollment and graduation numbers. And then I've required a summative report the last year, just to give a little bit extra information about what the program had done, that kind of thing, but still really focused on, did you meet your metrics of enrollment and graduation that you had predicted during the approval process. We also have productivity monitoring. So if campuses didn't meet those metrics, we would put them in a 3-year monitoring period after the traditional, so the 3, 5 year, 7, where they would have to give us some additional information about progress because they hadn't met the metrics that they had established early on.
Can we get pause right there?
Yes, you can.
What happens, let's just take, for example, associate's degree certificates, 3 years. You come back 3 years later, Phil, and you find out that they didn't meet what they had presented to us, didn't come close. We asked them for a corrective action plan. 3 years later, a corrective action plan didn't work. What then?
Yes, we put them in productivity monitoring for another 3 years.
And then what? And then
so that's the issue. They could be in theoretically, a program could be productivity monitoring until the end of time. Not ideal.
But we don't have the authority as THEC to abolish that program.
Correct.
So we just we're like a security monitor.
Right.
We're not, it's like the security guard doesn't actually stop them. The security guard stops the bank robbery. Security monitor just steps back and says, hey, somebody's robbing the place. Somebody will do something about it.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? I mean, I guess I'm asking, what are we supposed to be doing? What do we want the power to do? Who should we be giving that information to so they can actually do something with it? Instead of producing reports that nobody does anything with. Because I really like for us to get out of the business of producing reports that nobody does anything with. That it goes and sits on a shelf, sits on a website. And it was like, that was nice. And these great, bright minds that we have here and back at the office, they're crunching numbers and going through all this. And they've produced something, and for what? So I don't expect you to answer all that today, but that's where I'm interested in getting to is let's have meaningful reports that people can act on one way or the other.
Yeah, and
are the right people getting those reports?
Yeah, and I agree, and I think that's, to your point, I think that's where we need to be getting to and working towards, so. Well, first step in that direction, we heard from the commission, we've heard from our campus partners that the way we're doing monitoring just isn't working. So what we decided to do is earlier this year, we engaged a group of folks from across campuses. Not all of our universities were represented, but we had a good cross section, as well as the Tennessee Board of Regents and the UT System office. And so that group, we worked really hard, really quickly, really quickly for higher ed, which I do think was still pretty quick, to figure out, hey, let's try something different. What's a productive program? What's a valuable program? And so where we landed were some pilot metrics. And if you look in your materials, I don't have the
Very last.
thank you. Thanks, Stephen. There's a blank template that gives you the full listing of all the criteria that campuses could select from. So where we landed is on 4, I've been calling them buckets, I need to come up with a better word, but 4 buckets that programs that they would have to say, hey, here's how we are doing well in these areas. And so under each one, we've got both quantitative and qualitative metrics that the campuses can pick from. And so I just pulled out a couple to highlight some of the metrics that are in there. So for programmatic alignment, that has to demonstrate alignment with the state master plan and institutional mission, which we've seen that our campuses are doing that for all of our program work anyway. Another thing that came up from the task force is the need of that program to support another program. So we know we have some programs that we talk about physics a lot. Physics is traditionally low producing, but we know you have to have a physics program, you should have a physics program to support your science education and some other majors. So under student success and outcomes, we've got some things in there like job placement or enrollment in the next academic program. So if you have a pre-med program, are you getting students into medical school? And there's also some student and or graduate satisfaction metrics that campuses can pick from. Third area is program efficiency. So we've got our traditional metrics in there if campuses want to do that. So enrollment, graduation, but also what kind of amount of research funding are you producing? We know we have a lot of PhD programs that are very low producing as far as the number of graduates, but maybe raising millions of dollars of funds for the campus. Lastly, in here we have workforce alignment and demand. So what is the percentage of your graduates that are working in the field? What does the future career prospects look like for that particular program, especially for our emerging programs that maybe don't have a well-established market base yet? So, any questions there? Go ahead.
What are you doing with this?
So that's the basis of the reports that you have in front of you. Yeah. So, perfect question. So in the actual report, which I know is quite long, what we did is we let campuses this reporting period tell us if they wanted to use the traditional reporting method and the template, or if they wanted to go ahead and pilot these new metrics. And so we decided to also just look at those programs that were in productivity or at the summative phase. And just as a reminder, that's at the end of their monitoring period. We'd also heard from campus folks of, hey, we need some time to get these things up and running. So why don't you just look at what we're doing at the end of the monitoring period? And so that was something that we tried this time. And then since the productivity programs have been in monitoring beyond their set phase, we thought it would be good to pilot this with those programs as well. And it seems like a good way to look at if we've got programs that have been, as we've been traditionally measuring them, not productive, maybe give them an opportunity to try these new metrics to see if we can look at value of those programs a little differently. So we ended up with 39 programs in monitoring. Of those, 17 of them decided to pilot the new metrics. And then we had 22 programs go ahead with the traditional report. We did, of those 39, 4 programs are either filed the paperwork for termination or are in phase out. You can see them listed there. We've got 2 at Cleveland State, the AFA, and the Medical Informatics AAS, and then 2 at Columbia State, Civil and Construction Engineering, Technology, and Fire Science. So I thought it might be helpful to walk you through one of the programs that tried the new pilot metrics and then show you that against the traditional monitoring. So Austin P had a summative report. They were in their 5th year of monitoring for their aviation science rotor wing. And I just wanted to pick one that was hard to say. And so this program there is really focused on helicopter pilots and training them. And so I've listed here I've pulled out one thing. There's more than just these 4 things in their report, but I've pulled out something under each bucket that they've identified. So under program alignment, they pointed to the uniqueness of this program as something that the universities have really embraced. The emphasis of helicopter obviously is aligned with some of the work that's happening at Fort Campbell. They also pointed out under student outcomes that 90% of their graduates are working in the industry. And the remaining, there's been 10 graduates, so the math is really easy here. The remaining 1 graduate is though under contract. So once that person signs the contract, they'll have 100% graduation placement in the industry. They also provided workforce data via a report from Boeing that predicts a shortage of 61,000 helicopter pilots worldwide, which points to the continued demand for their graduates. One thing I forgot to mention earlier, and that I wanted to highlight here, under each of the 4 buckets that we have under the pilot program, we've allowed an other category. And that was for a couple of reasons. One, just we may have missed some things. And so we thought this was a great place for emerging criteria that maybe from the task force group we just didn't think of. But then also we have a lot of really innovative programs. And so how do you make a case for the value for something that's really innovative or an emerging industry? And so we thought this was a great opportunity to allow campuses to do that. And so in this case, Austin P noted about the size of the cohorts and how it needed to stay small. For different reasons, such as flight instructors, helicopters, and weather. So something we wouldn't have thought of as a mark of the value of the program. So when we look at their traditional report, we use as a baseline 80%. If you've met 80% of your metrics, that you get a green light. If it's less than 80%, red light. And so in this case, because their graduation attainment percentage is 42%, traditionally we would have said, okay, you have to go into productivity monitoring. However, looking at the pilot report, it feels like this is a healthy program that's ready to transition into quality assurance funding. However, our very black and white metrics before, this would be a stop, go to productivity. So I thought this was a good illustration of how this could work, right? And I'm not saying that we've decided the magical mix of what we should be looking at to evaluate programs, but I thought this gave a good example of one other way of looking at how we could be thinking about programs. I only have a couple more slides here. I did want,
Dr. Roberts, can you get a little bit more detail of what it means to go into quality assurance funding? Like what we have Dr. Harpel here.
Yeah, I looked at Dr. Harpel because
What does that mean as far as tying that to money and going forward?
Can I ask Dr. Harpel to come up?
I'm just going to get Domino's right here.
Good morning, Victoria Harpel. I oversee the Quality Assurance Funding Program. So when a program exits monitoring, they'll go into quality assurance funding, which has a funding element to it. As in undergraduate programs, there's 2 areas in particular that quality assurance funding will touch it. First, in a major field assessment. So we'll look at, are the graduates of this rotor wing program taking and passing their licensing exams? We want to make sure if they're getting an education to be a pilot, to be a nurse, to be a teacher, whatever it is, that they're actually passing those exams and keeping up the quality. The other piece that this would go into is an accreditation piece, so a program evaluation. Programs either have a national accreditor, so not SACS, the specialty area accreditation for nurses, for teachers, in this case for pilots. Or you'll have a program evaluation for programs like history, or at UT Knoxville has a PhD in nematology and plant pathology. They're the only one in the country. So there's not an external accreditor for that. In this case, the aviation science will go through AABI accreditation, which they can apply for once they have graduates, and they do. So they are in the line for accreditation there. They'll begin their site visit in 2024. So we're looking at quality. Are they, after they've been monitored, are they moving forward within the industry standard of excellence? And if they're not, then that impacts their funding, because the quality assurance funding feeds into the outcomes-based funding formula, which will then be monetized. So there are very real implications for if programs are not maintaining that high quality.
Anything else to comment? So I did want to just real quick give a summary of the traditional reports. We did have 22 submitted, 12 were productivity, 10 were summative. Just a note, some of those summative reports were those that were at the end of the 3 years of productivity monitoring. And so of those, 7 programs met enrollment and graduation metrics based on the 80% threshold. So they would be ready to go into quality assurance funding. As I mentioned earlier, 4 programs were terminated. We had 11 programs, though, that did not meet the 80% threshold on either enrollment or graduation. So they'll continue in post-approval monitoring. And we had 4 programs that didn't meet that 80% metric or 80% threshold on either metric. So thinking about this work, what's next? Obviously, I'm presenting to you today and hopeful to have some discussion here in just a minute of your thoughts and feedback. We're also going to be presenting tomorrow to the full commission. I want to bring together our task force again, since we have received reports now. Some of them helped write the reports. And so I really want to get some feedback from them around what, from your perspective as an author working with campus authors, what worked, what didn't. I had one campus reach out to me, like, we don't like that new form. And so I've got a call scheduled with them to talk about what they just were like, this isn't worth our time. We also haven't really thought about, so we've created this new report, but how are we evaluating it? In the past, it was easy. If you didn't meet that 80% threshold, like I said, red light, green light, right? With a lot of different metrics, both qualitative and quantitative, how do we evaluate them? What's successful? We also want to, as we're thinking about how we're monitoring programs, we need to take that a step back. So we need to establish, as we're developing new programs, what that could look like for those programs. So if we're going to monitor programs based on new criteria, then we need to talk about that criteria in the development of the new academic process, potentially. We are also, Dr. Harpel and I have been talking a lot, as well as the team, around how does this then align also to quality assurance funding. And then lastly, I'm trying to be really thoughtful, and we've been talking a lot about, every 3 years, as you may be aware, we do productivity monitoring for all programs. And so our thresholds for that in the past have just been, what's your graduation number? And if you're below that, to your point, Secretary Hargett, you end up on a report. But what does that mean? And some programs have been on that report forever. And so we're trying to think about, can this type of pilot help influence future work in that area as well?
Next question.
Sure, of course.
Who's the customer?
That's a good question.
I've been working on it a few minutes.
I think that's a key question. Because if the customer is the commission, that looks potentially one way. If the customer is the campuses, because there's more than one, to me that also looks different.
I guess I'm trying to figure out what problem we're trying to solve. Because in my mind, what we're trying to figure out is how the programs that we've authorized and are paying for are producing what we think they ought to produce. Okay? And so if they're not, then who needs to know that so they can change course? Whatever that looks like, either canceling the program, reforming the program, whatever that looks like. And I'm curious, in the post-approval monitoring, have we ever presented a report to a university president, community college president, who looked at that and said, Eureka, I didn't know I had a problem.
I'm looking to Dr. Harpool because she also used to be the author of this report as well, but I don't think we have we?
We have presented the.
Yeah, come on.
While you're doing it, 'cause my concern is that they should already know they've got a problem. So we're not really telling them anything new. They know. And frankly, because of the outcome-based formula, they probably know long before we know. They know, and it's a detriment to them. So they have a real incentive to get rid of non-producing programs. So that's probably not the customer, because they know before we do. So they don't need us to come back and confirm that for them. So I'm trying to figure out, who's the real customer and all that.
Sorry if I may, real quick. You know, I do not know the origins of this report working from. It is not a statute that requires us to do this.
It's a policy only.
You know, one, if the commission is the audience for this, and it is at first blush, I could see a primary reason for this is to be truth in advertising. We approved these programs that came in front of us based on these enrollments, based on these graduates. Institutions, are you living up to this, or were they just projections thrown out there? I think that is a key need that the commission should have. The information that you're approving on these 3 academic programs that you just did, are those data that we can stand by, and are the institutions standing by that years from now? I think that's a key need. We've also discussed in the past about distilling this into a one-pager for the presidents, for the board chairs, perhaps at the governing level, board level, or our finance chairs and education chairs during session. I think that's an audience that this report could have better, but I think you're exactly right. And the presidents know this information too. But a third iteration of the reason for this is sometimes the presidents need a report from the commission to point to and say,
Fair enough.
Hey, look, this is getting some attention at the state level, but that requires a clarity of message on our end for that.
Yeah, I just think there are, if we continue, if we're going to do this, we continue to identify programs that aren't producing what they were sold as. Somebody somewhere needs, maybe to your point, that somebody needs to be able to go back to a campus president and say, we're doing you a favor and get rid of that program for you. Because I know once that happens, a university president, community college president, they're invested in that program. They've got employees, they've got a constituency there that's kind of hard to go back and say, hey, I'm going to have to eliminate the program. Maybe sometimes we're going to have to do that for them. Even though we don't have the power to do that right now, maybe that's something we need to seek out. I think Commissioner Wharton was one to bring.
Madam Chair, thank you, Secretary. Again, historically, if you recall, there was a time when Tennessee was perhaps the leader in some of the proprietary vocational schools who were just stone ripping off folks. And I was kind of going around the state complaining about these trade institutions, proprietary, not telling anybody what's happening to their students after they get out. And they basically said, farewell, that's good, but what about y'all? What are y'all doing? And quite frankly, we weren't doing anything. And in the meeting, folks would show up, and it was just like a meal, anything that came in. The formula was totally different, and someone just made that observation. The lead criterion at that time was how many people did you have on your rolls in October, I believe it was. So this is something that deserves some real scrutiny. There's no longer any incentive for an institution to maintain a bunch of low-performing and non-performing offerings. And as we look at the first item we had this morning, institutional mission profile, that process should include a review of, hey, look, what do you have on your books that you're really doing something with? Do you have a bunch of courses listed there that's there on paper only, thereby keeping other institutions that perhaps could produce more graduates from applying to institute those programs? It deserves a hard look, particularly in light of the new formula. But at that time, it was something we really needed to do because we had no mechanism, either by formula or by supervision or whatever, to see if we were living up to what we were offering in the catalogs. Were these just a bunch of courses listed? Student enrolls, finds out it's no longer offered because no one was teaching that. So that's what it was. Let's take a hard look at it. I agree with all of your questions that it deserves a total review.
So I agree with both Commissioner Wharton and Secretary Hargett on this. I'm surprised that many of the institutions took the time to fill out this document. I mean, I was just looking at, I wanted to understand the basics of whether people were enrolled, whether they completed on time, whether they're employed in industry, the workforce alignment and demand, because that can change on a regular basis. The other thing I'd look at is ROI, like the program cost, program revenue. I would expect that the governing board to be doing this in TBR. But I'm guessing maybe they all operate differently, and I think that'd be part of this question is how often they're reviewing it. Are the board of trustees seeing it? But I've asked the same question every time I've seen this over the past few years. You know, why are we looking at programs that have been in some sort of productivity or summative thing for 9, 10, 11 years? There's no teeth to this. It's a report that just seems to sit on a shelf. And if it's the policy that we have set forth, then I think we just need to rethink what's the advantage here. To your point about, or someone made the point about, legislatively, maybe there's a one pager that looks at these, then talks about the financial implications. How much are we funding these programs that are not operating to the level of expectation? And I have two other comments/questions. One has to be accrediting organizations. I have a personal big focus on high growth, high demand jobs. I think that's the right way that we should be focusing across our state, given the amount of economic growth our state has right now. Are the accrediting organizations, are they keeping, I'm sure they are, like as up to date as we need to be? And are the institutions following those best practices? I've heard before that some of our programs are maybe not to the levels they need to be. And if that's the case, then what can we do to bring those programs that are high demand, high growth up to the level they need to be?
Yeah, I would say that with those programs that have programmatic accreditation, yes, that's happening.
Not all programs have it.
Correct. And so those that do not go through our program review process, which is part of the quality assurance funding. And so with the cycle coming to the end of 2025, we're actually thinking about, we're looking at program review. My team's been working with Dr. Harpool and thinking about what kinds of changes we could make to the rubric, somewhat informed by the work from the task force. And so that's something we can absolutely have as part of those conversations. There is it's not in statute, but there is a group of constituents that'll be, institutional constituents that'll be on that group. Okay. So I say all that to say the way we try to, the programmatic accreditors, for the most part, yeah, we don't have to really worry about them, but we are looking at program review with an eye to how can we ensure that metric is ensuring the same level of quality. Is that fair?
Yes, the other thing I'll say is part of quality assurance funding, our institutions don't have an option. If there is a specialty area accreditor, they are expected to seek and maintain accreditation, period, or they lose funding. It is that simple. If there is a national best practice, you are going to pursue it, or your funding will be, it will be reflected in your funding. The specialty area accreditors keep up pretty well. One that we've seen a little bit of lag is data science, just because the field is so emerging, but it's coming in under some of the computer science and some of the business. So it's being covered, but as you can imagine, those really new and emerging fields, there's a little bit of lag, but I'd say they're keeping up pretty well because they want to demonstrate their high quality. They have a vested interest in doing so and propelling that forward.
Do you have something to shoot about that? We got Dr. Nolan. I would love to hear Dr. Nolan's perspective.
I would too.
That's the danger of showing up.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, good afternoon. Brian Nolan, East Tennessee State University president, former THEC staff in another life. One thing I want to clarify here is there are two processes at play. This is post-approval monitoring. This is the process that your staff utilizes to review the production of programs that you've recently approved. Above and beyond, there's a low-producing program review that looks at the entire portfolio of the academic offerings of the institution. So they're related, but they're not identical. What you've referenced with respect to cost, delivery, enrollment, we review this regularly with our board. We look at this closely as it relates to program offerings. We look at this closely every time a position becomes available in a department. Do we fill that position? Do we not fill that position? So this is part of the central budget operations of the institution. We do look to THEC at times for assistance with the black hat. But in this case, for programs that we've recently started, I don't see the net benefit. Low producing program study is something different. There is a benefit to boards there because you do play that black hat role. But most of the programs that are on a low producing list are things like physics that are required for the gen ed core, or are programs that meet specific regional business and industry needs. So I don't think as you look across the state's institutions, there's a bloat from a program perspective at your colleges and universities.
Thank you very much, Dr. Owen. I also that ETSU is not on the list. So.
To answer your question, sir?
That helps a lot because, well, that helps. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else?
I want to say one last thing. I have, this is not blaming anybody. This is just the way things have been and what we've asked people to do. It's really about how do we better focus our energies on things that move the needle in higher education. Okay? Absolutely. Thank you, Dr.
And to that point, I think that we don't need to be overburdening the process.
Yeah.
And we need to be doing what's right, certainly for the state, for the students. The institutions already have a lot of these processes in place, and I don't know if everyone's as great as ETSU, so I'm assuming that it is. Then what role does this have to play? And how can we best serve all of our stakeholders in a way that makes logical sense, but not also, I would say, in some cases, not overburdening the institutions to fill out too much information.
Let's free up bandwidth value somewhere.
Meh. We're gonna get a t-shirt.
Sounds good. Okay.
I think you're remaining there to talk about the academic affairs program approval process.
I am.
Any other questions in regards to the post-approval monitoring report? We're ready to move on.
All right. As you may be aware, there's been a lot of conversation around our new academic program approval process. And so I've handed you guys a one-pager that just very high level walks through why we're doing certain things currently. And so in statute, we are, so specifically 497202-2A, if Scott, you're following along, although I know you know. This is where our charge to approve academic programs lives. The rest of the process currently is in our THEC academic policy. And so when we're looking at our policy as it's currently written, the criteria for evaluation for new academic programs is 4 specific things: alignment with state master plan for higher education and institutional mission, feasibility, institutional capacity to deliver the proposed academic program, and then program costs and revenues. Further delineated in our policy are these essential steps for academic program approval. And so these are all of the things that our campus partners go through with us in order to get to you at these types of meetings. So the first thing is the letter of notification. So when a campus wants to start a new program, we're brought into it at this phase. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of things that have happened on campus prior to this, but our first official notification at THEC is a letter of notification. One of the things I want to point out about this piece of the process is we do then send that out for public comment. So once we get a letter of notification, I send an email out to all of the chief academic officers, and we provide an opportunity for them to provide public comment about the program. I want to note, we get letters of support for different programs. An example is we recently had a program where the Board of Regents wrote a letter of support because they were really excited about the potential to partner for transfer. We also get other campuses that may raise concern around certain aspect of the program if they feel it's too similar to something that they think they can supply in their region. What we do with that, after the public comment period, the THEC staff provides feedback on the letter of notification. We have a checklist that outlines all the pieces for our campuses. And then our team provides some feedback to that, as well as we add any public comment that we received and have the campuses respond to it. So we have some written documentation of how they're going to address that comment. The next step is the new academic program proposal, which we call the NAP, which is a pretty large document. I always say it's very robust. And so that's where we get into a lot of the curricular elements, student support services. There's a financial projections of forms in there. Ooh, words. We have requirements around accreditation. I do want to say, just because we've been talking a lot about transfer today, with our bachelor's programs, we do have a section specifically about articulation and transfer, which is something we've added relatively recently with the acknowledgement of how important transfer is to our universities. After we receive the NAP, that's when we start this external review process, which Dr. McCorkle mentioned earlier. And so that's where we work with the campuses to identify a subject matter expert, because we see a lot of different programs, and my team, although brilliant, are not subject matter experts in everything. And so we work with that external reviewer to do a site visit where they meet with campus leadership, departmental leadership, students, faculty. They look at physical resources, if there's online, anything that's related for success for the program. After that review, the external reviewer has 30 days to submit a report to the campus. Once we receive that report, the campus then has 30 days to respond to any of the issues or concerns or suggestions raised in that report. They then submit to us a revised new academic program proposal. And once we feel like that's ready to go, that's when we give them the okay to bring it to the commission. And so you'll see on here, there's a board approval as step 4. That's not actually chronological. We used to, because we have revised this policy a couple of times, trying to make it more streamlined. We still have ways to go. But we used to require board approval at the beginning, so before we would accept a letter of notification, and then we would require a second board approval before we would bring it to the commission. Well, that was creating some huge bottlenecks, especially that last one. So what we've done with the latest update is we don't now tell the campus when that has to occur. We just say before we'll take it to commission, we have to know that you took this to your board and they signed off on it. So that's the process currently. I also wanted to, because I don't get to highlight them enough, you did get to hear from Katie and AJ today, but and Ryan didn't have any programs today, but he's back there in, I think, the same outfit as his picture. Sorry, Ryan. I need to be nicer to my team because they work really, really hard, so sorry, Ryan. But what we do is we do have program liaisons, and so they work very closely with the campuses. Each program liaison is assigned to a specific campus. So you can see AJ works with MTSU, Memphis, Martin, and the Board of Regents. Ryan, who's not in the same outfit, is working with TSU, THEC, UT Health Science Center, and Knoxville. And Katie works with Austin P, ETSU, UT Chattanooga, and UT Southern. I will say that's when they become the direct liaison to those campuses, but all of them are working on all those programs at any given time. So I want to kind of give you an idea of what we've done. We had a chief academic officers convening October 19th here in the tower. We were up on the 30th floor. It's very fancy. And so it was the first time since I've been here at THEC in 5 years that we've convened them in person. And so one of the things we've heard is we need to do that more often, and I agree. So we are, and I'm going to get to that, but we will be doing that more often. We had representatives from all of the universities. We had representatives from all the LGIs, the UT campuses, the UT system office, as well as the Board of Regents. We held a meeting in the morning just to talk about with the program liaisons and the provosts and chief academic officers about the process, what's working, what's not. And so I'm going to actually give you those questions here in a second. My team also met with program liaisons to have that same conversation, as well as took a trip to the Knoxville to talk with UT system academic affairs staff that following Monday. We really wanted to make sure we had engaged all of our stakeholders in this conversation. So here's what we asked our campus partners. What's working? What do you think is essential or beneficial? What are the pain points? What's not working? And what opportunities do you see for improvement? So what I'm planning to do is just walk you through what we heard from those conversations, as well as once we finished these conversations, the team went back and came up with some potential ways that we think that we could move forward, but I really want to hear from the commission what their feedback is as well. So let me start with this first question. So from these constituents, what aspects of the process did they feel are working? We heard a lot of good about the public comment period. It really provides us an opportunity for campuses to know what other campuses are doing and to provide some feedback. As much as we can work on when external review happens, the actual process, most of our campuses appreciated.
How long is the public comment period?
It's 15 days.
15 and 30 days.
Yes, yeah. The budgeting process and form, some of our campuses liked, you'll see later, some of them didn't love, but so that was one piece that a couple of our campuses said that was working. The alignment to SAC-COC standards and reporting, one of the things as a quick sidebar, what we've been doing as we've been updating policies is we have a group that AJ runs as well, the Tennessee Accreditation Network, that we engage. It's SAC-COC liaisons across the state. And so we've engaged them as we've been updating policies to look for ways that we can align with SAC-COC as much as possible. And so some of that's been working well. We still have some ways to go with some of it because we don't want campuses to be double doing work, right? That's a good language there. But if they have to do a prospectus for SAC-COC, why don't we accept that same thing for our processes? And so we've really been trying to keep an eye to that. We have heard THEC staff is quick and helpful. We've been working really hard to make sure we're turning things around as quickly as we can. And there's good transparency and communication between campuses and THEC staff. And then again, I can't speak enough to how well my team works with our campus partners and how much that's appreciated. And it goes both ways. So then we asked, like, what are the essential pieces of the process? And so we heard some more of those bigger picture kinds of conversations. The presence of a coordinating board to review programs ensures consistent quality across the state. So having that statewide view of what our program inventory looks like. We provide an independent review. Sometimes on campus, you know, that they've been working on, I always make it akin to dissertation work. Like you write these things so long that you don't have that critical eye anymore. You can't come up. And so we can provide some of that. And also a thorough holistic review also helps make both, I think, the commission, and forgive me if I'm not correctly speaking for you, but and well as the boards, the governing boards have a little bit more confidence in that the program's a good program. So that's what we heard from our constituents. This one, we had a lot of stuff. So what are the pain points? Process takes too long. We know that. That's why we're here. That's why we're trying to think about what can we do. It's not working as far as time to standing up programs, right? We heard, and we've heard it today, timing of commission meetings is sometimes a challenge because it can delay based on when that happens. A tangible example is UT system has 3 meetings a year, and so they couldn't get anything on this meeting because they don't meet till February. And so that timing, we've been trying to work better with that, thus the change of when we require governing board approval, but that still does take additional time. We also heard, of course.
Thank you. So this came up a little bit earlier, not quite the same way.
Yeah.
Scott, are we prohibited from having unscheduled call meetings? As long as we give public notice, I mean, we could have a time each month, honestly, that could be set aside, that could be 60 minutes and do a virtual call or physical presence for those of us that can't show up, a virtual call for others to knock these out instead of, having to wait the extra 3 months to get that done. Couldn't we do that?
Yes, sir, it can be done. The statutory requirement is simply that the commission meet no less than quarterly. Anything other than that, the board chair with the executive director certainly would have some discretion on scheduling those kinds of meetings.
So I just want to be clear, this is me speaking, I don't speak for everybody else. Sure. I think that's an easy problem to solve. I mean, there are other boards and commissions around the state that we realize something's come up and, 72 hours later, we have provided notice, met, and taken care of the issue and moved on. So let's not get tied up in it. I hope that the higher education community will hear us, that we can, if that's the 3-month problem, we can knock 3 months off pretty quick.
And it is. So additionally, we've heard the requirements of the proposal can be overwhelming, specifically in the context of a lot of times faculty are writing these documents, and so it is a lot.
What is used at the campus level to propose the program?
To do what? I'm sorry.
What is used at the campus level to propose the program? Like, is there a way to create a single document that's used by everybody?
Well, what we have right now is a checklist that goes section by section what's required. So that's the closest we've gotten. We have seen some learning communities start to occur at different campuses. MTSU has done one, UTC starting one. And so that's also helped. We've come, Katie was just there last week at Chattanooga to talk to the faculty as they're getting ready to do these proposals to help them understand what we're looking for, what's important, what's not. And so we've made a lot of progress that way.
So I guess, whatever's being done at the campus, is that something that we can just review as opposed to having the campus write another one for us?
I would imagine I know they're all, what the campus is doing, I think is largely led by our process, and I think internal processes do vary. So, but it's a way we could think about it is, what is happening on campus? What are those critical components from a campus perspective? So.
Madam Chair, if I can as well, being somewhat new to this process is, like I said, academic policy is not my area, but looking at it and hearing from Julie and others, Dr. Roberts and others, one of the challenges for our institutions in general is that, the provost may well understand our process, but a faculty member is brand new to it. And so we're working with a lot of fresh eyes faculty members on it. And I think that if there's any delays on the institution side, because not all the delays are on our side. Right. On the institution side, it's because the provost there and the deans are working with faculty who don't do this all that often. And I think that could be a challenge.
Yeah, if I can add something to that, because not all the delays are ours, but I also think we can wind up being the boogeyman sometimes.
Yes.
It is.
Sorry.
that somebody on a campus can say, well, I'm waiting on THEC. Well, their provost may not really know what they're waiting on. The faculty member that's an easy way to get somebody off your back and say, well, I'm waiting on THEC. We deal with the State Building Commission all the time. And somebody will come back to us, well, I couldn't get this building built because State Building Commission. Well, we asked you questions about a month ago. You should have responded back to us. We hadn't answered our emails. So I am kind of curious. I want to figure out how we can make sure that we're communicating broadly on a campus so that if we're communicating with a faculty member, whoever that provost is or vice president of academic affairs, that'll be copied on every email if they're not already, to make sure that there's more than one point on that campus to make sure there's communication occurring.
And right now, how we're doing that is we do communicate through, every campus has LGIs all have a program liaison, but to your point, it is one person. And the UT system has a person in their office. So we could communicate a little more broadly.
And this is no disrespect to anybody. I see it in my organization as well. If I get copied on email, I'm amazed how much more quickly people respond back to the customer. So.
So the other couple other things we heard is lack of consistency and feedback, especially across programs. So maybe one time we ask a really deep dive into some feasibility for workforce demand, maybe another time student support. So we're talking about how to, we try to keep it consistent, but we heard that and we're trying to be mindful of that. Better communication of policy options for program development. This is a little in the weeds around our different types of ways that new programs can get, or not new, but modified programs can get stood up. So sometimes a program will get proposed as a new program, but actually could go through a different policy that we have, modification, notification, to get it to market quicker. And so then we had some other questions around duplication. So this is, if we're doing, we heard, if we're having to do a prospectus for SEC COC approval, why are we having to do something like that for you? What's the unique value of us in this role? And then as much as some people liked our form, there was also a comment about the fiduciary responsibility to determine the value of a program should be left up to the board. It shouldn't, so, which isn't just about the form, I recognize there's a difference. But the fact if there is a program, and we've had some programs approved that actually were never projected to really make a lot of money or any, but the balance of that between faculty or students or assistantships or whatever, the campus was decided that that was an investment they wanted to make. So that was kind of aligned with that. Opportunities for improvement. We did hear from our campus partners, really they want some clarification from the commission around what's important. What are those key components that the commission thinks that we need to bring for them to decide if a program should be approved? We heard we should maybe think about doing just one document. So right now it's 2 iterations. It's the letter of notification and the new academic program proposal. Maybe we collapse that down to 1. What does that look like? What should be in that document? We already heard today, external review should go earlier in the process. We didn't have complete consensus on that it should go earlier, but there definitely was this case of we need to be thinking about external review while valuable, making sure it's not holding up programs. This kind of came up earlier around us doing some sort of state contract or state research around these gap analyses. Where do we have emerging fields that campuses should be thinking about starting new programs? And then it also came up, which we also talked about earlier, how does this go into the new state master plan for higher education when we're thinking about academic programs? So just being really mindful, as I know we will be in the next iteration of where academic programs fit in that. So that's what we heard. And then we came back and thought about it. So these are some potential next steps that the team has put together. Just a thought exercise of some things that we heard and that we thought could be some ways to move forward. Again, should this be 1 or 2 stages, which I just mentioned earlier? Well, actually, we basically said we should need to figure out what these things are. What's the best time for external review? We did hear from UT System that maybe we should be treating them differently. We do treat TBR differently as far as how we do program approval. The new programs, which is not actually what they're called, they do come before commission, but everything else, TBR handles approval. Also, and this, we've already talked about this a little bit, how do we do commission presentations? Do you want to hear all the programs? The other thing came up, TBR does a 30-day review where they prepare documents for their board of regents and send out an email, and they have 30 days to respond, and that's how they handle not having to wait to a full commission meeting to approve programs. The other thing, is it even a vote? Sorry, Dr. Reed.
No, it is not a vote. We send that every first of the month to the board with all of the documentation they would see at a regular board meeting. If there have been no questions or feedback by the end of the 30 days, they're automatically approved.
Madam Chair, there are other boards that we serve on. So I'm now a regent as well, my executive position, so I see that it comes in. the Chairs of Excellence Board, I believe Secretary Hargett you sit on as well. That's how if they have any modifications to the chairs from their campus, they send out an email to all the board members and just to weigh in whether we have any questions or not.
And the silence is deafening.
The last thing on here, which I haven't really touched on, is we do have a separate expedited approval process. And really thinking about if we should have a separate expedited process. And if so, then we really need to revise our current one because frankly, it's not that expedited. And so just thinking about if we are if we're saying programs are important, why are we doing some faster than others? And so I would like to get rid of our expedited program, but that's just Julie. But I want to get to a world where it doesn't matter. We have a process that works. So.
One more, I'm sorry to keep cutting in here, but to that third bullet point on UT and TBR, I think a lot of the conversation we've had in the last few months about our processes kind of stem from Focus and the Focus Act. And what we did with the Focus Act with regards to capital review and academic program approval, we took what TBR was doing for the universities and kind of mapped that onto everyone. And so when UT said, well, maybe the system should be treated somewhat differently, from their perspective, there's two layers the UT institution has to go through of bureaucracy to get there. That doesn't necessarily mean that UT should be treated differently, but perhaps the treatment we did for everyone just doesn't make as much sense. Thank you, Julie.
We did have a couple things for commission specifically. One, thinking about if there's a world in which you help us identify key considerations for statewide programs. What's important? What do you want to hear? We have ideas. We've been bringing you things, but really having a conversation. That's why I've been excited about these committee meetings because I feel like we've been able to have more of a direct conversation. I hope that continues. Also, thinking about the current process, again, along that same line, like what gives you the information you as commissioner needs, the commission needs, and really focus our evaluation on those pieces. Also, talking to you about what role would you like the local boards to play. We've heard from the comptroller's letter and from other folks, hey, maybe that should be left to the local governing boards. Well, I mean, let's talk about that. What does that mean? Where should we fit in so that we're creating a value add and not slowing things down? And again, when would you want to have input? You know, we've looked at other states, and sometimes governing boards or coordinating boards weigh in on earlier in the process, maybe at the letter of notification stage, thinking about, again, what it is now, knowing that this process will likely change, I would imagine, pretty significantly. But where's that sweet spot, for lack of a better word, of where you think it's a valuable time to come in as a commission? You know, we've heard from a couple of conversations and past meetings about, well, when you come in at the very end of the program, is that too late? It's already buttoned up, ready to go. So just kind of thinking about that as well. Some of the things that we've heard from our campus partners, we've been thinking about as a staff. So, and I know we're over time, so we may or may not want to go down here, but I was going to ask you guys the same questions as we've asked everybody else. But I think maybe it'd be better use of time of just getting your feedback, getting your thoughts. I can answer any questions I may have missed.
I definitely, when I read these over, would like to get a little bit more information on how it's going to impact the students in the area specifically. I think tying it to the local economy and the jobs available in that area is important, but then how is it going to affect the different populations that affect that area? So if I use Clarksville, for example, how is a program going to affect the Fort Campbell military and the affiliated students? If it's an area that is more likely to be royal and have be poor comparative to other areas of the state, how is this program going to impact those students and change their lives? That's something I look for when I'm looking at these programs.
Something I think would be helpful, and it really goes back to, I think, your last bullet point on the previous slide, is, and I think you talk about the cake being baked, or it's all buttoned up, something like that.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the last time, I've only been on THEC, I guess, almost 15 years now. I can't remember any time that an academic program got changed by us, where we offer input and somebody said, that's a great idea. We ought to go back and do something about that. Or, hey, we hadn't thought about it that way. By the time it gets to us, it's a fait accompli. So I really think in order for it, if we're going to do this, in order for it to be effective, whenever someone, a university, community college says, we have a new program we're interested in, this body should know about that at the very beginning of it. So it's on our radar screen. And then if it's of interest to us, some people will really dig into that. You may dig into that and say, I really want to understand this a little bit better. And then others, they're not going to look at it. They're going to just wait and see it when it comes time to approve it. But it doesn't do us much good, honestly, to kind of get it in the final couple of weeks before the game is over. There's no value add that we're offering, that this body offers. I mean, maybe staff does, but we don't really add value at that point.
Commissioner Wharton, do you have any comments or questions?
No comments. Everything is really good.
So I just wonder about the duplication of efforts, and I do agree with Secretary Hargett. By the time we get it, it is baked. It is ready to serve, right? And I've often questioned, like, why do we go into so much detail, knowing that the institutions themselves have gone into the same level of detail? So I've often questioned that. It sounds like the external feedback is valuable for the institutions, for the programs, and maybe there's a part of that process that makes sense. But I also know I have learned that the letters of notification, it's just a letter of notification. They may or may not move forward with that. So that could be a challenge too. But where in that process we fit in, I think the amount of detail we get is probably too much. So I think going back to, if there's ways to be able to coordinate with the governing boards across the state so that we're not duplicating efforts, to the comment earlier about if a faculty member is having to rewrite the same thing that he or she has provided to get his or her program approved to begin with, why did they do it for us? And I think there's a way to have some sort of common application, is probably like a devil term, but that concept, right, is something that can be easily used by all as opposed to recreating the wheel. I can see how that would just take time. If I was the institution level, I'd want to hear external approval. I think Dr. Nolan, and I've heard, I think maybe you mentioned that sometimes THEC might need to play the bad guy. And so where does that fit into the process? I would expect the overwhelming majority of the trustees across all of our institutions are very well versed in what's happening at that local campus level and are making the right decisions for that local campus level. I think where THEC has an opportunity to play is at a state level, a regional level, and a state level. And I think we need to understand what are the high growth, high demand jobs, employment relationships. TBR, specifically the TCAS, do a phenomenal job at this. And we heard some examples today of ETSU and others having great relationships with the business community. And it's ultimately why you are going through some sort of post-secondary degree or credential to get into the jobs of today or tomorrow, or to create them. And so I think there's a higher level view of all of Tennessee, which I don't hear coming from the individual institutions. I think the individual institutions are focused on the individual institution and that community. I think that THEC has an opportunity to play a broader level looking across all of Tennessee.
I think with the funding formula model, I think there is far less of a disincentive to create non-producing programs than there used to be. And as I sat here and listened today, and I really have tried to think about this for a while now, is what is the incentive for a university president or a provost to create a program that's not going to produce? I can't come up with that. And so they should know their campus far better than a board university should. Far better. I'm trying to figure out if they've got that locked down, then how do we add value, like what you're talking about, and take a more holistic view? And frankly, I think we as a body should be, and staff should be thinking about how do we go out to UTM or Memphis or ETSU and others say, hey, this is coming. Tell us what you're going to be doing to meet this demand.
Agreed, and we heard that there is an appetite for that from our campus folks too, to a certain extent.
I know you put a lot of work in this presentation. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the thought partnership because we really are trying to think of how we can help and so.
Yeah, and if I can tag on to that, I know that it's not necessarily always an easy process to go through, but you're doing a fantastic job of leading the team and going through self-discovery and understanding, and does this make sense for the team, does it make sense for THEC, does it make sense for Tennessee, and building those relationships. And I have to tell you all, I did hear that this meeting you hosted last month, that this is the first time the institutions had felt heard. And congratulations to all of you that were in that room, because I think that's a really important first step in helping kind of continue the relationships with the institutions and doing much, right? I don't think that you would have come down to this sort of level of detail and important input on how to make this process better if you hadn't been in person and if you hadn't hosted that. So congratulations and kudos to the work you're doing there.
Well, thank you for that, and thanks to my team, and also thanks to the partners, because we did have very candid conversations, which I appreciate. So yeah.
I assume those will continue.
They will continue. So.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you.
Do we have any other business? Anything else you want to discuss?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to, as we're learning our lessons from how to make this smoother, thank you to Secretary Hargett for the definition of tabs. We'll apply that for future use. But also, just a heads up for tomorrow, some of the feedback we got about presentations at the commission meetings, we wanted to hear from the institutions today. Tomorrow, Dr. Roberts will be presenting for those programs.
Very high level.
Very high level for that. And then third, just put a bow on it as well. At our January commission meeting, we intend to bring this conversation back up again for recommendations for policy changes in the future.
Just going forward, what my suggestion would be, and I think we talked about this when you and I met, is you may be presenting those, all of those individually or at one time, whatever the will of the body is. The chair of that committee, after you explain it, would then, in my opinion, then offer the motion for adoption by the entire body and be able to offer whatever comments they want to offer in support of that item.
I think that's not, it would happen tomorrow.
Yes.
We now have Natasha, who's our chair. She would be recognized, so she can pass it off to staff.
Anything, if she doesn't want to do
it. Before we exit, and I know that we're well over time, I would like to hear from the committee from an operations standpoint for this meeting, what worked, what didn't work, besides the tabs. I got the tab thing. Anything else? And Commissioner Wharton, I'll kind of also to you, if there's anything that you have suggestions and recommendations to the staff to be able to help support this specific committee.
We'll find out. I think it's something on my end, Madam Chair, with the WebEx. We'll call today and get that worked out. Thank you.
Thank you. On a separate note, I would actually open it up to the institutions. I would love to hear from any of you on anything else that you think this committee can do to help support the work that you're doing. And it might be too early to have a comment.
From a single bill line.
Anyway, I welcome any sort of input, certainly myself or Dr. Gentile, because we do want to have these committee structures be something that's valuable, certainly for the institutions as we think about access, academics, and completion, but also operationally, we got to make sure this works for the commission as well. So thank you all. We are adjourned.
Thank you.